Hello, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joe Moran, and I'm here with Andrew Velez and Joe Dehls. And that's now episode 297. In this episode, we're going to be previewing the AFC West. That means trying to find a flaw in the Chiefs, setting egregiously high expectations for the Chargers, hearing Drew preach about this Russell Wilson breakout or comeback season that might not happen, and explaining why the Raiders will stink next year.
As you guys can see, the flaw with the flawless Chiefs.
As you can see right now, Riv is not with us. He is on daddy duties right now.
Saying Riv is not with us made it sound like he's dead or something.
R.I.P.
That's crazy.
Drop some RIPs in the chat.
Poor choice of words. But yeah, football episode, just the three of us. I'm excited to preview the best division, arguably the best division in football. We know first is going to be the AFC East this year. Second is the AFC West because, I mean, we know the Chiefs are elite. Super Bowl champions, king of the NFL predicted it in me.
What about NFC East? You got the Cowboys going to the Super Bowl, and we know the Eagles are like that. Giants, low-key playoff team. Washington.
AFC East is better, I think. I think it's better. But you know what? That's an argument, though. That's an argument.
No, I would say that's more of an argument with the AFC West. I feel like the AFC East is pretty comfortably the best.
The best division of football. I agree as well. The only lowly team is the Patriots.
Yeah, and it's still Bill Belichick, you know.
But the AFC West is going to be very fun to predict because the Chiefs we know are elite. The Chargers still have a good roster on paper.
They're teetering.
And depending on how you feel about Russell Wilson and the Sean Payton marriage, then you might be a little bit higher on the Broncos than most, and you might buy into that Kool-Aid once again this year.
I wonder if you're going to buy in.
Drink that shit.
Oh, you know I'm not buying.
No way.
I'm not buying. We'll talk about the Broncos. But listen, this Friday we got the merch dropping. We got the Pick a Side merch dropping.
It's a matter of time.
Sir, they doubted us.
And I've been talking to Joey about the merch.
Okay.
And T-shirts going to be $25. Shorts going to be $25. We're not sure on the prices of the hats just yet, but just know that the shirt and the shorts combo will be $50 in total if you want to buy the set. But that's what we're going with. And if you guys want to look at the picture of the outfit,
that's a great price. $25 for a T. It's hard to find a T-shirt for $25. It's hard to find shorts for $25.
No doubt.
That's a come up.
And they're nice shorts. Are they the knit ones, right?
Yes.
The shirt's good quality too. It's soft, you know.
Comfort Colors. Comfort Colors. That's the brand that makes the shirt.
Shout out to them.
So what colors are we doing? Are we just dropping the black for now?
Just dropping a black one for now.
Okay, all right.
You know, see how this first merch drop does. So hopefully you guys go out and support this merch drop.
No doubt.
Because if you guys support it, then it's going to give us more incentive to drop colors and, you know, just have a boatload now.
Let me ask you a question because it seems like John's having a stroke. Did we mention the AFC North in terms of being the best division?
They're in that conversation.
I think it might be. It's between the East and the North for me.
They're in that conversation. Bengals, Ravens, Super Bowl hopefuls. You got the Steelers, always respectable, and the Browns, dark horse team. Everything
I was going to say
goes right
with the East, with the West. There's two mid teams. And shit, you could talk about the Broncos being mid. I won't be one of those, but the Raiders will be mid this season.
Who are the two mid teams in the East?
The Patriots. I'm saying in both respective divisions. Excuse me.
Oh,
you have the Patriots and you got the. No, come on, bro. Does that sound like me to shit on one of my
quick jab
friends' teams for a lull? Maybe. But regardless of that fact, like I just mentioned, you have the Raiders in the West, you have the Patriots in the East. In the North, there's no bad team.
There's not.
There's no bad team.
If I were to rank the divisions, I think number one is the AFC East.
But why?
Because you have three contenders in there.
You could debate that you have three contenders in the North.
There feels like there's a gap after two.
I got to see it with the Browns.
With the Browns. So we got to see it with the Jets.
No, I think the Jets are.
See, like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
I think the Jets have a more talented roster than the Browns right now.
I do think so too.
On paper, I feel like it's pretty close. However, I understand where you're coming from.
I think I trust Rodgers a bit more than Deshaun right now.
I think that's also a fair statement.
I think the ceiling's probably different.
I agree. I think Deshaun's ceiling is slightly higher than Rodgers, but I think the floor for Rodgers is definitely way higher.
Watson's ceiling is higher
Correct.
over the guy who just won MVP 2 of the last 3 years?
No doubt. I just think that his
Well, we know
athletic
Roger's
ability
ceiling is
also-
MVP, and we know Watson's ceiling is what? Not MVP.
But he also was 70% completion percentage. I think almost 5,000 yards. That
Like
was
4 and 12.
That was also the year that
He was amazing.
yeah,
He was amazing.
He was amazing.
But Rogers was better. That
Yeah,
year you're
but
talking
Deshaun-
about,
Deshaun was
Rogers won
amazing.
MVP.
Sean was
Gotcha.
amazing. And Rogers also 30,
Nah,
38.
listen, first year you took away
Sean's 27.
Devontae Adams from Aaron Rodgers. They missed the playoffs. First year you take DeAndre Hopkins away from Deshaun Watson. They're 4-12 team. Statistically, it was drastic, the difference between the two.
Yeah, I understand. But Rogers ceiling is best quarterback in the league. That's his ceiling.
At this point,
Second
in time,
best.
so-
Because Mahomes will always be number one, but his ceiling is MVP. I mean, we've seen it 2 of the last
for
3
sure.
years.
Listen, Aaron Rodgers is one of the all-time greats.
I think number 1 for me is AFC East. Number 2 is AFC North. And number 3,
Yeah.
I'll give the nod to NFC East because I think the Cowboys and the Eagles are 2
Very
NFC
good.
contenders. And the Giants, I think they're gonna regress this year. I don't think
excited
they'll
for
make the
that.
playoffs again.
That episode, man.
So that's why
It's gonna
I'm
be
not as high
nasty.
on the
East?
Giants.
Yeah.
What do you think? Riv will make a return then?
Oh, hopefully. Who knows? Who knows? I guess so, right? He's got his team.
His
should
team
be
was
on for the
his team was
Eagles.
the last show.
He had the Bills,
Yeah.
right? He missed. He likes the Browns, though. He wasn't there for that.
That's
Last year he
true.
was very high on the Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Higher than the Cardinals.
It didn't go that well.
Can't win them all.
The Raiders should have been a lot better than they were.
They should have.
Josh
Oh.
McDaniels just stinks.
We have breaking news to share with you guys. So Mojo has been a longtime sponsor of
Yes, they
Pick a
have.
Side.
Goats.
And for every NFL episode in NBA, because they now have NBA investments as well, we always try to do a good job in mentioning them. And we want to announce that we have renewed our contract with them for
Shout
the
out.
next 12 months. And that's exciting news because Mojo, all of last year, you could only play if you were New Jersey. But coming in the football season, they're going to have DFS, player props. You can
Beautiful.
also bet on money lines, and it's going to be available in 30 states. So chances are there's a 50% chance that any of you guys that are listening out there can finally use Mojo.
And this is amazing too, because listen, we saw the props enter just towards the end of the NFL season. That was a bit unfortunate. We would have liked to see at the start because, of course, you like to utilize. Week 1 gets a little tricky, but damn, that Super Bowl Sunday, we cashed out. Jalen Hurts, lock of the century, 11.5 rushing attempts. He hit in the first half. Well, just a lot of fun. I'm extremely happy to hear that we renewed.
Shout out to Mojo and shout out to you guys. Was for you guys, wouldn't get this
Big
extension, man.
facts. Big facts.
We were on that
Well said, bro.
contract year, so shout out to you.
Before we get to the first AFC West division preview with the Chiefs, we're going to talk about our investments for the AFC West.
Let's do it.
And listen, for me, I looked at the rosters. I'm only comfortable in 2 teams that I want to invest into any players, and I'll be honest,
Understand. Both
The
on the Kansas
Chiefs,
City.
Patrick Mahomes,
Uh-huh.
he's at $140. He went up 45% last season from $94
Damn.
to $140. That's how much he went up because, MVP, like that's Mahomes.
Super Bowl.
I think he's going to go up again. Brady retired at, I think, 190. So there's still a lot of room for Mahomes to grow. And Sky Moore, because he didn't play a lot last season, he went down 42%, and he's at $4. And I think
I like this guy more.
given his skill set, he excels in the slot. Juju left that void in KC's offense by signing with the Patriots. I think Sky Moore, his first year was a redshirt year, learning the offense. They played him in different places. This year, he's going to play in the slot, and he's going to break out for the Chiefs in their offensive system. And I think $4 right now for him is a steal. That can double at the end of the season.
They said he's having a great, training camp's been going on for a few days, but they said a great training camp so far. Kadarius Toney is dealing with a knee injury. So he's taking a lot of the snaps Kadarius Toney usually would take. They said today at practice he had a great day, mostly playing in the slot.
Under similar thinking, just for the sole fact that Kadarius Toney is injured, Juju Smith-Schuster is no longer with the Kansas City Chiefs. There leaves for opportunity to be had. And I like where your head's at with Sky Moore for sure, especially that he's had a year in the Andy Reid offense. The only rookie to really thrive under Andy Reid's offense was Deshaun Jackson in 2008, that he had 62 catches for 912 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was the best rookie season that a wide receivers had while Andy Reid was their head coach. And so, yes, I can understand where that process would lead you to Sky Moore, and where immediately where I'm going, this is more so a long-term investment. Excuse me, I can't speak English. In Rashee Rice. And Rashee Rice was also selected in the second round, a selection that the Kansas City Chiefs traded up to acquire him out of SMU. He had 355 yards his last year, was a 4-year college athlete, 14.1 yards per catch. This is a bigger dude, just one of those guys that will play on the outside. It will be that jump ball, deep threat receiver for Patrick Mahomes. And like I said, with opportunity to be had, Rashee Rice is one of those guys that I'm targeting. Now, also to give you guys one on the flip side, a team that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show, and by a little bit, I mean a lot of it. I think it's the last topic of the show. It's going to be Jimmy G, and he's a player that I'm going to be shorting, and I don't want this to get misconstrued. I don't think Jimmy G by any means is bad. He's not a bad quarterback. However, he's a replaceable one. And when you're a stable quarterback, you are in a position that you can be replaced. And when Las Vegas is long-term, it simply does not have Jimmy G in the picture, especially in division where Patrick Mahomes is there, Justin Herbert's there, Russell Wilson's there. You're not going to really make a threat for the division with a stable / replaceable quarterback. And with that being said, where his price is at currently $38, if he is replaced at some point during this season, or let's say towards the end of the season, they decide, hey, we're going to shut him down because we want to be in the competition to tank for Caleb, which is a real thing. A lot of teams are going to be tanking for Caleb Williams. This is not a surprise. Vegas is one of those teams that I'm looking at. And if Jimmy G does get benched, that price will go down.
I like those picks. The one I'm going with, there was a lot of guys I was considering. But the one I ended up landing on was Quentin Johnson with the Los Angeles Chargers. Right now, he's $8.50 between Nelson Aguilar and Chosen Anderson, formerly known as Robbie Anderson. I think this is a perfect fit with Los Angeles and the Chargers because you have Keenan Allen, who's that possession type receiver. You have Mike Williams, who is more of a 50-50 contested ball type receiver. But Quentin Johnson, he's able to get those 50-50 balls like Mike Williams, but he's also probably the best yards after catch receiver in this class. He averaged 8.9 yards after the catch in college, which ranked 10th amongst all wide receivers, and had 18 missed tackles forced, which ranked 8th amongst all receivers in college football. And he also averaged 19 yards per reception. He's a big play receiver. He can make things happen after the catch. That's, desperately what the Chargers needed because they have multiple guys going down to injury. And even when those guys are on the field, Quentin Johnson has a different type of skill set that those guys don't have.
It was hard coming up with breakout players or players that I think are going to move up in price for the AFC West because I don't trust these teams. With the Raiders, Devontae Adams is already highly priced, and how much more is he going to go up with Jimmy Garoppolo under center? Jacoby Myers is kind of a stable receiver. I don't want to gamble on that. Michael Mayer is a rookie. I'm not too fond on that. Josh Jacobs is holding out, and Jimmy Garoppolo is a below average quarterback. Then with the Chargers, Keenan, Mike Will already kind of like at their peak. Established. Gerald Everett is just a guy. So Quentin Johnson has some upside. And Austin Eckler, too, is kind of around where he's going to be because a lot of his productions he's already had. And then I look at the other team, the Broncos, unless I'm buying into the Jerry Jeudy breakout or a Javonte Williams breakout.
I like Javonte.
There's not something that attracts me with that team.
Javonte managed to stay off the pup to start training camp, and that's huge, right? Even like someone like Brees, who had an injury before Javonte, I want to say, or maybe right around the same time, he started the season on the pup or on training camp. Now, they could come off and on at any time, but I think a lot of people were expecting Javonte to start training camp on the pup. The fact that he
Javonte got hurt first, and then
that's facts. Yeah, Brees got hurt like week 7. Javonte was like week 4 or 5
against the Raiders.
So a few weeks. But the fact that he's training, the fact that he's practicing already, he was at practice today. He's on a good track to start week 1.
Yeah, this was like one of the more freak athlete type of things, crazy comebacks from Javonte to be ready before the season starting. Of course, to be ready the first day of training camp is insane.
The only player that I looked at was Marvin Mims that was somewhat attractive.
And he's another one that unfortunately hurt his hamstring today. Earlier in OTAs, could not finish OTAs because he injured his other hamstring. Definitely Marvin Mims, someone that I was looking at. But I'll say this about Javonte. He was one of those guys that was heavily targeted in terms of the passing game.
Remember week 1?
How could I forget? It was a
13 targets?
Something stupid. Something dumb.
Targets, something
and
nuts.
Last season was the most that Russ targeted a running back in the passing game. Career high. And Javonte Williams obviously showed the skill set to be both a great rusher and a great receiving back. If he is healthy, he's around $10, which, especially for running backs, you really got to break into that upper echelon to see return on it, which is definitely possible with Javonte given his skill set. But it's one that I'm taking cautiously as of right now because it still is early in training camp. Obviously, today was the first day. We got to see how the Broncos decide to ease him in, because Sean Payton already said that there's going to be days where he's a full go. There's going to be days where he's limited. There's going to be days where he's completely sitting out. So I want to see the entire process of training camp, but definitely a name I'm monitoring for the way that our offense is going to function this year.
Those are our biggest Mojo investments. You can download Mojo and use code PickAsideMojo for a deposit bonus. Link is in our description down below. To start off these previews, we're going to start off with the Kansas City Chiefs, led by the greatest quarterback in NFL history, Patrick Mahomes. And the question with them is kind of a simple question to ask. Can they repeat this season and win back-to-back Super Bowls? That's really the question.
I know Drew could not wait to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, so I want to give this time to let you go and talk about your favorite team.
You're a true prick. Yes, Kansas City. They're a great team. I mean, what else do you want me to say? I'm here. Of course, we all understand that I'm a Broncos fan, and I was in absolute misery the entire last season, especially going into the season. Of course, they proved me to be one of the most wrong there ever was on another team. I said that this wide receiver room was a huge question mark, especially after Tyreek Hill was gone. Patrick Mahomes proved that he doesn't need a true star to be on that cast. Of course, outside of Travis Kelce, one of the all-time great tight ends. And when you have Andy Reid as also one of the all-time great play callers that there is, it's just the ultimate trifecta. They're going to be able to get a job done. They're going to be able to win games. I believe they still finished as the number 1 seed. Obviously, that was huge in terms of getting some rest. They went on to win the Super Bowl. The rest is history, yada, yada, yada. But of course, somehow, some way, after winning the Super Bowl, they find a way to get better. And so what's really unfortunate for me is here, Kansas City has one of the best offensive lines in the game. Kansas City has the best tight end in the game by far. Kansas City has the best quarterback in the game by far. At the running back position, it really does not matter. They ran a combination of Isaiah Pacheco and, of course, Jerick McKinnon, who was great in the passing game, especially for the last back half of the season and into the playoffs. But that was more so Isaiah Pacheco's bread and butter also. He was dominant, especially in the run game. But the wide receiver, right? You're asking me to pick a flaw in this offense. Yeah, I guess I can point to the wide receiver, but with Patrick Mahomes, it does not matter. You're going to have MVS, who is going to be a repeat offender in this offense. Yes, Sky Moore, we already talked about our investments. Sky Moore is definitely a name to look out for. Rashee Rice is definitely someone to look out for. Justin Ross, who you mentioned as a redshirt freshman for Sky Moore, Justin Ross is also another one of those guys, because as an undrafted rookie, they didn't need to keep Justin Ross around. They understand his skill set, 6'4", over 200 pounds, a big body type dude. Mahomes clearly takes a liking to him, likes to have him around. I believe that he's been running with the first team, as has Rashee Rice. So there's going to be a lot of interchangeable pieces, especially at that wide receiver position. I mean, if you want me to nitpick, sure, wide receivers, but so long as Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, it's really not going to matter. And then on the defensive side of the ball, secondary-wise, you have Trent McDuffie going into year 2. He was very, very good in year 1. They go and they add, if I mispronounce his name, I apologize, Charge Omenu from the edge. Omenahu, thank you. They added Drew Tranquil at linebacker as well. I mean, this team, as long as Mahomes is the quarterback, as long as Andy Reid is the offensive play caller, you can just already cash in 13 games that they're going to win automatically. So, yeah, I'm glad that you let me go first, so I don't have to talk about them anymore.
And I don't want to skip over Justin Ross, because he's someone, like you mentioned, went undrafted, but he was a highly touted
for sure
NFL prospect before he's had some really bad neck injuries. Freshman year at Clemson, he averaged 22 yards per reception, 1,000 yards on 46 catches, followed up by 806 yards on 66 receptions. His junior year, he had his injury, and he didn't play at all in 2020. He played some in 2021. But this is a guy who, if he didn't get hurt, he would have been a first-round pick. If he didn't get hurt, he probably would have been the first receiver off the board. So the talent is there. It's just the injury concerns.
For sure.
But for the Chiefs, last season it was different because they lost Tyreek Hill, right? So we had some question marks about this offense. We all still thought they'd be really good, but we thought maybe they would take a step back. But they didn't slow down. Mahomes, number 1 EPA per play, number 2 in completion percentage over expectation, number 2 in big-time throws, 3rd lowest turnover-worthy play rate, number 1 yards per game, number 1 points per game. The offense continued to be the best offense in football, even while losing the most explosive receiver in the NFL. what Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid can do.
Quarterback's crazy. Man.
It doesn't matter what receivers. It could be Rashee Rice. It could be Sky Moore, MVS, Juju. I think for the remainder of Mahomes' career, I should say with Travis Kelce, I don't know if they're ever going to get a true number one receiver, but I also don't think they ever need a true number one receiver. That's how dominant they are. They found Pacheco in round 7, who ended up having, a nice season towards the end of the year. You have Jerick McKinnon, who's catching passes out of the backfield. You still have Clyde there, who had a bit of a role last season. But they're constantly just going to bring guys in and out. And as long as Kelsey's there as their number one, they're going to figure out ways to be a top offense. This guy's grinning his ass off like he's been a Chiefs fan his whole life. Shit is gross. And defensively, they have a lot of young players. They're basically the opposite of the Steelers. The Steelers have the number one paid defense and the last paid offense. The Chiefs have, I don't know if they're number one, but they're up there in terms of offense, and they're last in defense because you have Nick Bolton on his rookie contract going to year 3, L'Jarius Sneed going to year 4, McDuffie year 2, Karlaftis year 2, Jalen Watson, DB, who struggled a bit of his rookie year, but going into year 2. And then you have the couple veterans in Chris Jones and Justin Reed, who both had great years. Chris Jones obviously being one of, if not the best interior defensive linemen, and Justin Reed had a bit of bounce back year from his last year in Houston. So on top of that, they have arguably the best coaching staff in the league with Andy Reid on offense, Spags on defense. There's not much to say about this team. Did you see that clip on quarterback where he's sitting next to Matt Nagy? It was 3rd and 14 against the Bengals. Said, "Oh, you got to run it here," and they throw it, pick up a first down, and win the game. I don't know what Matt Nagy's really doing, but not what to say about this Chiefs team. Not going to spoil anything, but they're going to win the division.
Can you believe that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, the Chiefs, I would say, can you believe that they've won a division 8 years in a row?
It's crazy.
Time flies. 3 with Alex Smith, and then the next 5 with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, this is absurd. Out of 80 games he started, he's only lost 2 games by more than 1 score. In 5 years as a starter, 2 Super Bowl wins, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 NFL MVPs, 5 AFC Championship games. He's a lot to go to the AFC Championship every single year.
He's basically like
5 division titles, 5 12-win seasons. So what you said, you can lock it in. They win 13. Yeah, you can lock it in. They're winning 12 plus every single season with Mahomes under the helm, and 5 Pro Bowls. I was grinning, Dehls, because I just got flashbacks. Last year in the offseason, there was some disrespect. I'm going to give you some slack. But from this guy, Mahomes has to prove himself.
He did.
No, he did not. He has to prove himself. This was the year the Broncos was going to win the division. Whatever. I understand you're a fan.
To leave, and I will say the same exact thing.
Drew right here was reluctantly putting respect on Mahomes.
I need Reid
last year.
Show me that he's not a system QB.
Go listen to this guy last year. And also, the disrespect was off the charts. Then in the Super Bowl, when I told y'all they got the best coach, they got the best quarterback, they got the best tight end. You guys told me those are 3 players. Those are 3 players. So y'all slept, man. Y'all slept. And then we're looking at this team now. They're in a totally different position than they're coming into now versus last year. Last year, they were plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl. That's how much they were getting slept on. And Mahomes answered every single question despite losing Tyreek Hill. Teams played too high on them. And last year, Mahomes, 2 seasons ago, he struggled. Last season, he was the best quarterback against it. But there are some question marks with the Chiefs, and there's some legitimate question marks with the Chiefs. The biggest one is Chris Jones. He has not reported to camp yet. He played at a defensive player of the year level last season, and this guy changes their defense from being bottom 20 to being a top 15, top 10 group in the NFL. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. I think he's top 2. The only person you could put over him is Aaron Donald, and I think Aaron Donald more so is living off the reputation of being the best. I think Chris Jones last year played at the best level of any defensive tackle in the NFL.
Miss one season automatically when you're probably arguably the greatest defensive player of all time.
No, I know Aaron Donald is one of the best defensive players of all time, but I think Chris Jones last year had a better individual season than him.
Sure, he missed 7 games? I would assume so.
No, I'm just saying when they were on the field, Chris Jones, highest pass rush win rate of any player.
Amazing.
And he was getting double teamed more than any player either. Amazing. And their secondary, you mentioned it. Trent McDuffie, I think, is amazing. He was somebody that out of the draft I was very high on. Yep. Jalen Watson, as a 7th round rookie, was impressive. He's an average corner, but for a 7th rounder to play at that level, you find that impressive. And L'Jarius Sneed, people don't talk about him enough. I know when it comes to the Chiefs, we look at Reed, we look at Kelsey and Mahomes, but L'Jarius Sneed is one of the best slot corners in the NFL. And he's somebody that was a big reason why the secondary had success. But this secondary is reliant on the front seven getting pressure. And when the front seven doesn't get pressure, their secondary is leaky. Another question mark I have is Harrison Butker. Last year, he hit 78% of his field goals, which was a career low. And in some games, that cost them versus the Colts in the regular season. That cost them. The Matt Ryan masterclass at Alec Pierce. I was
in hell.
I was dancing. But Harrison Butker is somebody that I think he should bounce back. He's been a great kicker for some years now, but that's a question mark. I mentioned earlier, I think Sky Moore will replace Juju just fine. And I'm interested to see if this team has moved on from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because Jerick McKinnon last year was a third down running back because he's one of the best running backs at Pass Pro, and he just played better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So those are the big storylines that I'm looking to see. I know some people will say the Chiefs got weaker at tackle because Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley left. Yep. Jawan Taylor at right tackle, Donovan Smith at left tackle. You know, Jawan Taylor is a good right tackle. Donovan Smith last year was leaky on the left side for Tom Brady, but Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley last year finished first and second in pressures allowed by tackles last season. So last year, Mahomes wasn't playing with very good tackle play. It's just the interior of the offensive line is one of the best trios, if not the best trio in the league.
Sure.
But I find it hard to believe this year that Mahomes would be tested more than he was last year. Last year, Mahomes faced 9 top 15 defenses, the most he's ever faced in his career, and he passed all those tests with flying colors with no true wide receiver number one. And this is a good sign for the defense in the future. They were 22nd in EPA per dropback, but when L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, and Jalen Watson were all on the field, they were first in EPA per dropback on 168 snaps, which is a pretty good sample size. So when these three are healthy, that defense can take it to another level. And I think if the Chiefs want to be a dynasty and want to win back-to-back, it's going to be on the defense to now ascend to a better level. We know Mahomes can win with an average defense, but if this defense can ever become great and they have some young pieces, I mean, we're talking about a legitimate Patriots, 49ers, Cowboys like dynasty with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, they're a dynasty without having that top of the line defense. Honestly, they don't need it. Like, they really don't. As long as they're going to have Patrick Mahomes and those boys on offense, the defense just has to be respectable. They have to step up on third down, in the red zone, in the playoffs. Well, they hold the Bengals to 17 points, 20 points, right? It was a relatively low scoring game, definitely for the Bengals. So as long as they're showing up in those moments where you're not expecting them to be elite week in and week out, but if they're doing the small things right in those crucial spots, the offense is going to do enough to score.
Mahomes has been pretty damn good over these last couple of seasons. So what else is there really to say other than
MVP, Super Bowl MVP?
The Chiefs are going to be good. How about we just talk about the Chargers?
Here we go.
Team that we actually beat.
Nick Bolton,
yep, had a great year.
I love him. Just to shed some. I've been loved him. What are you talking about?
Why can't he love Nick Bolton?
Just Chargers, Chiefs fan players. He suddenly loves.
No, he's been talking about.
I've been talking about Nick Bolton for a while.
I know, sure.
You know that.
Anyone on the Chiefs
I'll give
allegedly.
Yeah.
It's all right.
But yeah, I think outside of the big three, of course, with the Chiefs, just some players I'm really looking forward to their growth. L'Jarius Sneed, I think, can even get better. Trent McDuffie is an obvious one. Justin Reed last year, we don't talk about him enough. He replaced Tyrann Mathieu. We didn't even know that Tyrann Mathieu left the Chiefs. Nick Bolton, George Karlaftis was first amongst rookies in pressure rate. He was second behind sacks to Aiden Hutchinson, but Aiden Hutchinson, a lot of his snacks were free sacks. But Karlaftis, if he can develop into a great pass rusher, and then the first rounder they got in the draft, I don't know how to pronounce his name. His first name is Felix, though. They got some young players that if they develop, man, I think this team can really pop in. They also have a new starting safety in Brian Cook. Well, the defense can pop because, we don't put no respect on the defense.
Nah.
It's always Mahomes, but it's never, man. This defense actually gets timely stops whenever the chips are on the table.
I guess you could say last year it definitely doesn't get respect, but I feel like this offseason, that's what they've tried to make a primary point of emphasis for this team. Signing, of course, an edge, signing a linebacker, bringing in some depth at the secondary position. They understand that Mahomes does need some help. So, again, with experience, I expect this defense to continue to improve. But yes, it is dependent on Chris Jones being there opening day, which I don't have a worry about if I'm a Chiefs fan. They're going to get that done.
He wants 30 mil. 30 mil a season.
You give it to him.
That would be right behind Aaron
If they
Donald.
didn't give it to Tyreek Hill, part of me feels some reservation. Part of me has reservation that they give it to Chris Jones.
But
well,
I
they
also
have money allocated to a lot of it to essentially to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce.
I also think not that Tyreek's replaceable, but since you have Mahomes, he could cover a lot of things.
Yeah.
They don't have those pieces on defense to cover Chris Jones.
That's true. That's gonna be the biggest storyline for the Chiefs coming into the year, because if he's not there, that's a big loss.
He'll show up at some point. He's not going to sit out the year, But
if there's one team in the AFC that you think poses the biggest challenge to the Chiefs, what team do you think that is?
Still the Bengals.
In the AFC?
Still the Bengals.
In the AFC.
Burrow 3-1 against Mahomes. Won 3 in a row. The only quarterback to do that. You got teams like the Bills are going to be in that conversation. Miami with their potent offense. The Jets at both sides of the ball. But right now, it's hard for me to look at a different team. The Bengals just give them hell every single game they play.
Ravens. I'll throw that one as an honorable mention for sure. And we have to see how the season starts and, of course, how the defense comes out. But I'm going to throw the Dolphins in that conversation, too, in terms of high-powered offenses. Dolphins are going to be in that top 5, top 3 conversation for sure, just how explosive they are, understanding that year 2 now in the system, 2 is only going to play better. God willing, of course, health is 100%. Of course, the defense is supposed to take a massive leap with Vic Fangio now coming aboard, with the additions that they did make long. Of course, Jalen Ramsey now being added to the mix. You expect that defensive unit to be a lot more sound than it was last year, where they're not just letting up points just at will. So, yeah, for sure, I'll throw the Dolphins in that conversation. But really, it seems as if the Chiefs should be the favorite.
I think the Bengals are the best answer just because of Lou Anarumo's defensive game plan against Mahomes in previous games.
Understandable.
And we know that the Bengals offensively can put up some points, but why I am a little bit more reserved about the Bengals is because their offensive line cannot stop the Chiefs' defensive line, and I think that's always going to be an issue for them coming into playoff games.
Will be for a lot of opponents they play.
I think the two teams that pose the biggest threat, I mean, one of them, call me a fan, but I think it's the Jets. Just because of how great our defense is and how great our secondary is, I think we pose one of the biggest threats. I'm going to put the Jets second to the Buffalo Bills. I still have a lot of respect for the Bills and what Josh Allen can do. Josh Allen, his floor is a great quarterback, but when he's at his best and playing it and really playing, he's just in a zone. He's the closest thing to Mahomes we have in the NFL from a ceiling standpoint, and he's the only one that could go toe-to-toe with him, just going back and forth that we've seen. So for me, I'm going to have the Bills number 1.
I can understand respecting the Bills there, but just how disappointing they were against the Bengals at home, for them to essentially be a no-show offensively and defensively, allowing Joe Burrow to do essentially whatever he wanted as well. That's why I'm left with a sour taste in my mouth when I think about the Buffalo Bills. So I hear your points. History has shown us the Bills have been a great regular season team come playoff time. Of course, one of the best games that we've ever seen as fans of the sport, that Bills versus Chiefs game, but you got to at least make it there. It's back-to-back years of being out in the second round and losing to the team that you weren't even supposed to worry about, allegedly. You were supposed to, not that the Bengals are slouches, of course. That team just went to the AFC, back-to-back AFC championship game, Super Bowl. You have home field advantage. You're supposed to have one of the best defenses in the game, one of the best offenses in the game as well. For you to be so underwhelming against the Bengals, I feel like I have to give that edge to Cincinnati.
Things just would have been so different if they just could get one stop against Mahomes and Chiefs, because it feels like I want to come up here and say, like, the Bills just never seem focused in those big moments, right? They're always just a little bit off, but you think they're 13 seconds away from going to the AFC Championship and against the Bengals last year, of course, but if they would have beat the Chiefs in that fashion and then had a letdown this year, we probably would have looked at it and said, oh, it was an off year. They didn't come up. They had the DeMar Hamlin situation. Like, there's a lot going on, right? But since it happened back-to-back years of heartbreaking loss and then blowout, we're kind of all looking at the Bills in a different light.
It's difficult to rely on a rookie, but Dalton Kincaid, I think, is an X factor for the Bills offense. If he can produce at a high level as a rookie, it now opens up the Bills offense that much more. And I think, Khalil Shakir, there's been reports of him maybe earning a spot in the slot. I think that Dalton Kincaid might be that receiver in the slot because of those mismatch opportunities. Yep. And now you're going to have Knox, Kincaid, Davis, and Diggs all on the field at the same time. So if Kincaid can get good production, then the Bills offense can be even better. And that's the missing piece they've needed. With the Bengals, when Joe Burrow faced Mahomes, I didn't look at those games and was like Joe Burrow matched Mahomes in those games. I looked at those games and said the defense and their scheme held the Chiefs offense. When I've seen Josh Allen match up against Mahomes, it's literally been, oh yeah, it's who played better. It can go either way because these two were putting on a light show. And that's where I look at Josh Allen and just think, despite the Bills' deficiencies, he'll be able to carry an offense.
And while we're talking about the Bills, I want to talk about Stephon Diggs real quick because he had a press conference today. I believe that he stood there and talked for 20 minutes, answered a ton of questions. But I was left admiring Stephon Diggs even more than I already do for the sole fact that he just has so much self-awareness, and he just the way that he carries himself and the way that he was handling these questions, understanding that some of the questions he was receiving were trying to almost
catch him.
A little defamation, really trying to say, hey, your reputation of what happened in Minnesota. Are you a me guy? And really, he came out and said, listen, you guys really are trying to come up with a narrative that I haven't even spoken on. And so, if all you're trying to do is stir up controversy between me, the team, the coach, Josh Allen, of course, he put a bunch of that to bed, and it leaves now a little bit more confidence if you're a Bills fan, understanding that my quarterback and my number one wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League, are on the same page as well with Sean McDermott too. All is well. Again, I just needed to give a little bit of praise to Stephon for just handling things as well as you can and being one of the true professionals in the National Football.
He said him and Josh Allen are brothers. He said he wants to be a Bill for life. He was talking about Gabe Davis. He said, I think Gabe Davis due for a breakout year. If I wasn't here, this would be Gabe Davis's team. He'd be the wide receiver one. Drew knows this, but I traded for Stephon Diggs in my Dynasty League last night. Let me know what you think. I gave up Treylon Burks, Jordan Addison, DeAndre Swift, 2 second-round picks.
You stole Stephon Diggs.
Take that.
Treylon Burks, I'm not confident in the breakout.
That trade
Sorry,
fucking
Dehls.
stinks, bro.
I'll be honest, it took a lot of me to click accept.
Yeah, I
DeAndre
so
Swift.
Weird.
I mean, come on. Rashad Penny's taking first team snaps. If he's healthy, now we know Rashad Penny when he's healthy can do some damage.
He'll be healthy for
Jordan Addison
at least 6 games.
I think Jordan Addison has a chance to be one of the better wide receiver twos in the NFL.
So,
but I mean, come on, you're getting Stephon Diggs. Like that. Who accepted that?
Alvaro.
Or who sent that? Did he send that to you?
Yes. Originally, he sent that with a first as well, but I got him to get off the first.
Is he tanking?
No, he has a weird team. Like he has CMC Chubb. He had Diggs, Cooper. He had a really good team, and then he traded Diggs, and now it's like his team's still good, but he needs a receiver.
The good thing is that I have his first round pick this year, so I'm hoping and praying on his downfall.
That's nuts. That should have been a veto, I'll be honest.
You don't veto in this, unfortunately.
I mean, I think it's good. If the user wants to make the trade,
I agree.
Max offered him something.
Max offered him Elijah Moore, AJ Dillon, Michael Thomas, and a 2026 first.
That's a better deal, I think.
Oh
You're
my
wild,
God.
bro.
I think
I would rather have Jordan.
I just want talent. Yeah.
Because of Elijah.
All right, relax. But maybe.
That's what I'm saying.
Is Elijah Moore not the most attractive piece in that deal?
Jordan Addison's
Jordan Addison.
Yeah. You think he is?
And Treylon.
Yeah.
I would rather both of them over Michael Thomas if he's healthy. He's very good, but you can't really bank on
Elijah Moore is getting a lot of hype out of
Elijah Moore is better than Treylon Burks. By a significant amount.
Significant amount.
Yeah.
What are you
sound
doing
like me right now?
What do you mean? What am I doing? It's facts.
Who has more yards this year?
Elijah Moore, pretty easily.
I actually
it could go either way.
Understand
I think they'll both probably be around like 700-800 yards if they're healthy.
Listen, Elijah Moore requested a trade from the Jets. He got his wish. One of the guys that when he requested his trade,
we were not.
It was in a bad time. It was a bad timing.
5-2, rolling.
But Elijah Moore legitimately wins on so many of his routes, and he's one of the more underrated receivers in the league. And I think, sometimes the production, how good a player isn't match the production. But I think Elijah Moore in this offense with Deshaun Watson,
it's like Stephon Diggs for years in Minnesota, where like he was one of the best route runners, but he just wasn't able to show it because you had Adam Thielen there. He goes to Buffalo, one of the best receivers in the league.
That's why I look back at it now, and part of me wishes that the Jets kept Elijah Moore because
would love to.
I look at Garrett Wilson, and he's a wide receiver one, no doubt about it. But then outside of Garrett, I like Corey Davis, and Corey Davis is possibly the best wide receiver that Aaron Rodgers has had outside of Devontae Adams in
him and Lazard
the past couple of years. Yeah. but I think Corey Davis is just a better receiver. Lazard just excels at blocking. One of the best
You're a big
blockers.
Lazard guy, though.
No, I am. I like Lazard. He's solid, but he's really solid in the run game. I just feel like the Jets need another dynamic spark.
I agree.
And that's why with the restructure that he just had,
Trade
35
deadline.
million.
Trade
When we get
deadline.
Devontae Adams, we're going to be vying for that Super Bowl appearance.
If you guys get Devontae Adams, conversations change.
We get tagged.
If you guys get Devontae
So you move off from the
Adams-
Dolphins after that?
No. I'm just saying that they're most definitely a lock to make the playoffs.
This team we're about to talk about, I wish I could sit here and predict that they can be the team to challenge the Chiefs, because I think on paper the Chargers have a chance. I think they have the quarterback and they have top to bottom a roster that can, but I just don't trust the coaching. And I think a lot of the Chargers' success is dependent on Brandon Staley. And Brandon Staley has given me some confidence because last year the defense did improve from the secondary standpoint. They're still one of the worst rush defenses in the league, but I just can't fully buy into the Chargers. I think their floor is still high because they have Herbert at quarterback and they just got Kellen Moore, and anything that's not Joe Lombardi's an upgrade, but I still can't trust the Chargers. And I think 2023 is a make or break year for Staley. And this is a year where there's a possibility that he gets fired. The fact that he kept his job after blowing a 27-0 lead.
Pretty remarkable. Perfect word.
It speaks volumes to how Tom Telesco and the Chargers feel about Brandon Staley as a person. They're going to give him this one last year, but I think this is the last year to prove himself.
Yeah, this past season, they had a top 10 offense. Of course, as you already credited to, Justin Herbert's one of the best in the game. You have Patrick Mahomes, and I consistently say my number 2 quarterback in the National Football League, against popular opinion, is Justin Herbert. And really, we saw Keenan Allen go down. We saw Mike Williams go down. We saw Justin Herbert turn Joshua Palmer into his wide receiver 1 and actually be more than serviceable and continue to get wins. Austin Eckler, we can't talk about it like Austin Eckler hasn't been one of the more reliable these last couple of seasons. I say it also, last 2 seasons, has a combined 40 touchdowns. This guy, Austin Eckler, just has a nose for the end zone. Offensive line last year was not that great, and that's really also due in part to injuries. Rashawn Slater being out this season, that's something to look forward to, his return. The offensive line should be a little bit more improved than it was from last season. Rashawn Slater makes a drastic difference, and that's an obvious statement. It's just more so being hopeful that guys like Keenan Allen can stay healthy. Mike Williams, of course, can stay healthy. Now you add Quinn Johnston to that mix, also allows a little bit more depth, maybe a little bit more wiggle room. God forbid one of these two do go down. You do have a safety blanket. Joshua Palmer, like I already just alluded to, that's another great option to have as a backup option. But defensively, that's really where all your questions really should stem from. The interior of their defensive line, still not great. Secondary wise, so long as Derwin James, it's just night and day, the difference between the Chargers defense when Derwin James is on the field as opposed to not. Derwin James, when healthy, in my opinion, is the best safety in football. And I say that as being a Broncos fan. I love and adore Justin Simmons. It's just understanding just how versatile this guy Derwin James is. But J.C. Jackson did miss a good portion of last season. In his games that he did play, he was not that great. But of course, anytime you get someone of his talent, regardless of what your opinion is, you're adding just more talent. Of course, you just hope that he is 100% on return. But really, why I do worry about this team is the rush defense. You didn't do anything to improve it. And I think, back-to-back years, they've been a bottom 5 rush defensive team. Secondary-wise, they can improve. But last year, they were still a bottom 12 defense overall. And it's going to be a lot on Brandon Staley to improve that side of the ball because his job is on the line. If that's the question, 100%. This is a prove-it year. You need to win a playoff game, especially when your quarterback is as great as Justin Herbert is. He had a 27-0 lead. Yeah, we could put some blame on the offense not being able to completely put it away, but to blow a 27-point lead, you got to look at the defense and say, what's going on here?
For sure. Sorry.
Four interceptions in the first half. They did a great job for sure, but second half, it's a tale of two halves, and they could not stop a nose.
No, I was shocked when Brandon Staley kept his job. I thought after he, had that insane meltdown, I thought Sean Payton was going to be the guy they went out and hired, right? You have Justin Herbert there. You have an offense really waiting to explode. And for years, Joe Lombardi's just been holding back this offense. So I thought they were going to let go of Staley. Obviously, they brought him back. And listen, last year, I know it's a disappointment, right? You have the huge lead in the playoffs. You were a team that a lot of people were kind of had as a dark horse, right? Possible Super Bowl if things go right. But unfortunately, a lot of their team dealt with injuries, and it feels like that's always the case with the Chargers. But you had Justin Herbert dealing with the ribs, Keenan with the hamstring, Bosa missed 10+ weeks, Rashawn Slater missed the year, Mike Williams missed 5 weeks, J.C. Jackson, like you mentioned, missed more than half the year. Derwin James had injuries too. So even with all of those injuries, the fact that they won 10 games, second in the division, you got to take a bit of a victory lap for that, right? You're hoping that this upcoming season you stay healthier. You hope that your franchise quarterback's able to stay upright. Your left tackle is one of the best in the game, is able to stay upright, and your best defensive players can stay healthy. Now, obviously, you could look at all the teams around the league. The Broncos dealt with a ton of injuries too, but it does feel like this team is talented enough to make a push for the AFC Championship game. I don't know if I go as far to say that they'll be able to go to the Super Bowl, get past the teams like the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, but I think the minimum for this team, their expectations should be at least a playoff win, right? You have Justin Herbert, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and I'm very high on Kellen Moore. I think outside of Sean Payton going to Denver, this is going to be the biggest coaching upgrade across the NFL because, listen, Joe Lombardi, what he did with Justin Herbert these last few years, he should be incarcerated for. I mean, the fact that Justin Herbert is one of the best arms in the NFL, one of the best arms we've ever seen. That's not an exaggeration. His arm is right up there with the Mahomes, is right up there with the Josh Allens. He just doesn't get to show it off as much. These last 2 years, this past season, he was 31st in air yards per attempt at 6.4. The only players below him were Daniel Jones at 6.4 and Matt Ryan. These are two guys that did not throw the ball down the field at all.
The only thing to defend Lombardi and Herbert at the same time is
injuries.
Personnel.
I agree, but you still have NFL receivers that, listen, 31st in the league. There's not 30 teams above him that, you know what I mean? No matter what the personnel is. The 2 years prior, Herbert ranked 18th and 25 in air yards. On the other hand, Kellen Moore with Dak, top 10 in air yards per attempt at 8.4 in 2023. He was around top 15 in 2022. 2019 was his highest at 9.3 air yards per attempt. I'm really high on Kellen Moore unlocking this offense, not only because you have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams who could do some things over the middle of the field for Keenan, more possession, and Mike Williams on the outside. But like I mentioned in the Mojo segment, I think Quentin Johnson is someone that could kind of take this offense over the top. They've desperately needed somebody that can make something happen after the catch. Keenan Allen, he's still great, but he's the possession receiver. You're not expecting him to go out there, catch the ball, make 2 or 3 guys miss, and get those chunk plays. He could do it, but he's doing that based off his route running basically alone, right? He's not a burner. He's not that type of guy. And Mike Williams, on the other hand, he is more of a burner in a sense that he's getting vertical. He's the one winning those contested catches. But after the catch, he's not a guy you're expecting to really do much with the ball in his hands. Quentin Johnson is someone that could win down the field, win those contested catches, but also do something with the ball in his hands. That's something they've desperately been missing in this offense. And the fact that Herbert's going to have someone like this skill set, when he's rolling out of the pocket, when he's able to make guys miss and, have those scramble drills, I think Quentin Johnson's someone who's going to benefit greatly from it. So I'm really high on the Kellen Moore upgrade over Joe Lombardi. I think he's going to come in and the Chargers offense is going to look a lot different than it has in the past. And just talk about the defense quickly. We know the talent's there, right? On the edge, you have Khalil Mack and Bosa. That's one of the best, if not one of the best duo in the league. The interior is a bit weak. They still had a terrible rushing defense in the league last year, but they did bring in Eric Kendricks at linebacker. His MO is to stop the run. He's not as much of a coverage guy, more so of a run stopper. And of course, you have Derwin James there. And lastly, at corner, Michael Davis very quietly had a great season, ranked 23rd in coverage per PFF. He's a big corner, 6'2", 200 pounds, plays a lot of press. So if you have him, and if you could get J.C. Jackson to be back at that level he was in New England the year prior, your secondary is shaping up really nice. You just got to hope that defense goes from bottom of the barrel in terms of rush defense to hopefully middle of the pack. Then you could look at a defense that could be top 10 in the league.
And the J.C. Jackson one, him being bad last year was the biggest surprise of the season for me, because how Brandon Staley likes to play his corners, he likes to play his corners on an island, playing one-on-one. And that's what J.C. Jackson did in New England. But for some reason, it was a disaster with the Chargers. The run defense will always be a bit leaky because Brandon Staley's philosophy is that I'd rather 5-6 yard run game than a 10-yard completion. So he doesn't pack the box. Their boxes are very light in the front. The biggest thing with them, man, on defense is just the injuries. Joey Bosa last year played 5 games.
Yep.
J.C. Jackson played 5 games. Austin Johnson, who was a defensive tackle they signed to pair up with Sebastian Joseph Day, played 8 games. He missed half the season. Then on offense, they lost Rashawn Slater after 3 games. The injury bug has hit the Chargers. That's not even mentioning Mike Williams and Keenan Allen missing a combined 11 games. They were only on the field for a combined 22.6% of the team's dropbacks together. That's why, for me, when it comes to talking about the Chargers and Justin Herbert, he just got his contract extension, and people think for some reason he's regressing. They don't think that he's deserving of being the highest paid quarterback.
Idiotic opinion.
When people think that Justin Herbert has a plethora of talent surrounding him, it is very obvious to me that they are simply reading names off a website and they're not actually watching what's happening on the field, because Keenan Allen is good, but he wins in a very particular way that doesn't really spread the offense and threaten defenses vertically. Mike Williams is a jump ball receiver who gets little to no separation. They're still good receivers, but the biggest problem with the team last year was the scheme. And I don't want to give Joe Lombardi a cop-out because it wasn't a personnel issue. Yes, there were some things he had to overcome, but good play callers overcome those obstacles. Keenan got injured in week 2. From weeks 2 to 10, the Chargers' early down passes to running backs was between 24 to 41%. So that means on first and second down, you can guarantee the Chargers at least a quarter of the time are passing it to Austin Eckler in the backfield.
He got it done, to be fair.
No, he didn't. They ranked 24th in EPA per play on those plays, so it was very inefficient.
Austin Eckler had 20 touchdowns, bro.
But those are all really in the goal line. It doesn't mean it was efficient.
So hard to make it negative.
How many touchdowns did Jamal Williams just have?
18.
He had 18. Am I looking at Jamal Williams like, yeah, he was amazing and great? I don't think so.
What you're saying. No, he did have a great season. You can't take that away from him.
I mean, I think it was very dependent on the Lions' offensive line.
That I don't disagree, but we can also talk about how the Chargers' offensive line is not good, and Austin Eckler's still effective.
Well, that's why the Chargers' running game is one of the worst in the league.
I don't disagree there.
17.
Running back targets for those plays were 41% success rate, 4.8 yards per attempt. And this is where the personnel issue to me, it's not a personnel issue to me. This is why I don't believe that because running back targets last season for the Chargers, 4.8 yards per attempt on 84 attempts, 41% success rate. Wide receiver targets at or behind the line of scrimmage, 25% success rate, 2.1 yards per attempt, 12 attempts. All other wide receiver targets beyond the line of scrimmage, 57% success rate, 8.9 yards per attempt on 88 attempts, which means this was more efficient than throwing it to Eckler or behind the line of scrimmage. And on all running back targets, the Chargers ranked 23rd in EPA per attempt, 11th in success rate, so they had some success, and 26th in yards per attempt. The Chargers had success throwing the ball beyond the sticks, but Joe Lombardi just didn't opt to do that. All other wide receiver targets ranked 6th in EPA, number 9 in success rate, number 10 in yards per attempt. This is a mind-blowing stat. Only 42% of Herbert's passes were beyond the line of scrimmage. That means
that's hilarious, actually.
More than half of Herbert's passes were dump offs and screens. I mean, it was ridiculous. So for me, I don't give Lombardi an excuse because on the plays where Herbert is actually throwing beyond the line of scrimmage,
it's getting done.
He had an EPA of 0.37, which would have ranked number 1 in EPA per attempt. Last year, number 1 was 0.31. So Herbert, when he's actually throwing beyond the line of scrimmage, all of his numbers ranked at a top 10 quarterback level. And that's with the diminished personnel. So that's why I'm not somebody that looks at the weapons and like, oh yeah, Herbert has help. He just does not have help. And in the 188 dropbacks that Herbert did have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, 0.17 expected points added per dropback. It would have ranked 3rd over the full season. 50.8% success rate would have ranked 2nd. 7.9 yards per pass attempt would have ranked 3rd. 77.1 completion rate would have led the league. And 106.4 pass rating would have been 2nd in the NFL. So Herbert has shown, I mean, when his 2 top targets are in the field, that we're only on the field together for 22% of snaps, that he is playing legitimately at a top 5 quarterback level.
Easily.
So that's why I don't give Lombardi an excuse, because I think he sabotaged Justin Herbert. And Kellen Moore, I'm optimistic about it because Dak Prescott last year was a very aggressive quarterback. He throws the ball down the field. So I'm excited to see it. I think given the Chargers injuries last year, given Joe Lombardi's questionable play calling last year, the fact they won 10 games is really a testament to what Herbert did.
100%.
And that's why I have a hard time believing they won't at least win 10 games this year.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
If they're healthier, if Kellen Moore even is a little bit better than Lombardi, and if Staley can, get this defense at least to be a little bit better against the run, I think there's a positive mindset for the Chargers team. But I do also get sick of every year coming into Charger seasons and being like, this is the year. I feel like this is the year team for 2 years now.
I agree.
Last year and this year?
I think last year and this year, yeah.
Okay.
When they got Brandon Staley.
Yeah, last year I had them high.
No, last year, understandably so, you should have had them high. On paper, like we do every preseason, it's an understandable mishap. You look at the roster and you understand that they're great. They were great. It's a matter of injuries destroyed this team very early on in the season, and it was a matter of Herbert playing hero ball while the defense continued to be lackluster.
It wasn't great. Justin Herbert is out of this world good. I know you had a tweet that went a little bit crazy. You got Dolphins Twitter on you. You got Ravens Twitter on you.
But what did you say that was wrong?
Nothing.
It's the offensive situation. People were like, "Oh, exactly." Tua had Jakeem Grant and Matt Collins.
But here's the thing: we can acknowledge a lot of things individually. Did Tua have help? No. Did Lamar Jackson have help? To a degree. I know you say that from 2018, 2019, he had a solid supporting cast. I don't disagree to a degree, but more recently, he has not had that much help. No. Justin Herbert, yes. Keenan Allen, Mike Will, Austin Eckler are great, but you can't rely on Mike Will more often than not in terms of injuries and staying on the field consistently, and production also, where he had his down year when Herbert was there, but then the year after that, he was unbelievable. And then this year, he could not stay healthy completely. Keenan Allen, when he's on the field, it's amazing. That's one person that you can't deny, and Austin Eckler. But the offensive line, 2 of the 3 years have been, let me not say horrendous. Year 1, it was horrendous. Terrible, yeah. Year 2, it was good. Year 3, injuries killed it. It was not good again. And so I can understand, especially when you want to talk about play callers. Yes, all can be true. We don't need to bring in, my situation's worse, so this is why you're wrong. No, we can make general statements and make them individual. So yeah,
Herbert just got his bag too.
I'm saying this as someone who is a Dolphins supporter too. So let's not.
Well, that happens because do that. When guys are talking about the teams, I watch almost every team. At least I try to keep up with every team.
Of course, you got to.
These guys don't watch every team. If they're talking about Lamar, they're probably only watching the Ravens. They're only getting Ravens news. These Dolphins fans are only getting Dolphins news. But yet, whenever something comes out about Herbert, they want to come in flocks and attack or whatever.
Well, it's because they treat him like the golden boy. Which, hey, listen, I'm guilty of doing the exact same thing. But I understand what my eyes are seeing. Sometimes it's okay to trust what your eyes are seeing.
And I think
people have difficulty doing that.
And I think the difference is that with the Chargers, that's why I said earlier, when you look at them from a just box score, oh, wow, they have Mike Williams. They have Keenan Allen. Well, most of those people that are talking about those two did not know that they were only on the field together for 22% of snaps, which means that 80% of the time, Justin Herbert did not have them out there together. Really. Exactly. That's like if Tua, for the majority of the season, only had one of Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle on the field. And by the way, when it was just one of them on the field, Tua struggled mightily. When Herbert did not struggle that bad. Herbert, and this the difference in that elite quarterbacks.
He was average for his standard.
And even Herbert in elite circumstances can be the best quarterback in the league at like production wise or top 3. And the eye test will back it up. Even Herbert, if you surround him with nothing, will still play at a respectable level, where there's other quarterbacks that if they're surrounded by nothing, you're not going to get that production out of them. The Lamar one is, I can understand the argument, but for some reason, Ravens fans think that Greg Roman was completely clueless. His passing game concepts were elementary. He's not good. But as a run game designer,
One of the best.
even before Baltimore, he had stints with San Francisco. They were a top rushing offense with Colin Kaepernick. He had a stint with Buffalo. They were a top rushing offense with Tyrod Taylor and LaShawn McCoy. Tyrod Taylor made the Pro Bowl that year. So Greg Roman, you can at least say he played to one of Lamar's strengths. Yeah. And that strength was arguably his biggest. Exactly.
Especially early on.
And that strength was one of his biggest, and that's when he had the MVP year. So I can at least say the offense coordinator played to his strengths. A lot of people arguing that Greg Roman was worse than Joe Lombardi. They're like, oh, Joe Lombardi still has a job. And you know that Joe Lombardi is actually with the Broncos right now?
I know.
Is he?
Yeah, it's because he's our offensive coordinator. But that's mostly for the fact that obviously Sean Payton's going to be calling
the connection with Sean.
And exactly. He has a long history with Sean Payton.
Yeah. So as long as it was Sean Payton, I'm not worried about him. But when he's the one calling the plays and designing the offense, now it's a real question mark. And the Chargers for me last year, I just feel like when you look at their success in different groupings and what worked and what didn't, I think it's alarming that they didn't adjust throughout the season. I think that's a Brandon Staley problem because he is the head of the snake in the operations and what goes down. So for me, Brandon Staley is somebody that I have lost a lot of confidence in, and I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it's worse to have a season that just blows up in your face and Staley gets fired, or the Chargers have a fantastic season and you have Herbert really masking a mediocre head coach, a below average head coach, which buys Staley more time on this team.
It's true. I think Staley, you had a tweet. It was a great point that Robert Saleh turned around the Jets defense in 1 year. And the fact that Brandon Staley couldn't, and he came into the situation with more talent on defense than Robert Saleh did. I mean, you'd expect in year 3, right, that he'd be able to have something going on. But I think just to go back to the quarterback point, a lot of fan bases are just very self-conscious about their quarterbacks because, like Drew mentioned, Justin Herbert doesn't get any flack, right? Like nobody shits on Justin Herbert. Nobody really points out on his flaws, but to be honest, he doesn't really have any. On the other hand, you have the other quarterback, specifically if you want to talk about a guy like Tua, who obviously taken one pick before him, he didn't have the success early on in his career, right? So he got scrutinized very early on. Then when he does have that success, people are saying, well, how can you not have success when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike McDaniel? And then a guy like Lamar, he still gets disrespected. Even though he won MVP, people still disrespect him, think he's just a running back, think he could just run the ball, and he's an okay passer. So I think a lot of fan bases just get very self-conscious about their quarterbacks and say, my quarterback's better than this one because X, Y, and Z. But Herbert, he really is one of the best in the game. Yeah. And a lot of people, just because you don't win those playoff games, just because you don't have those playoff wins, Lamar has this same problem too, that they're not going to put you in that category of an elite quarterback, even though when you bring up the context of whether it's coaching, weapons, offensive line, defense, there's a lot of things bringing these quarterbacks back. And the fact that guys like Justin Herbert, guys like Lamar and Tua to this past season can overcome that, you should be praising them more than just trying to bash the other guy and defend your guy.
Yeah, I agree. And with Herbert, there's a lot of revisionist history that happens because as a rookie, yeah, you can say Keenan Allen, Mike Will, you have Austin Eckler. Shane Steichen was the OC. Anthony Lynn was the head coach, and Anthony Lynn was the guy that had his finger on the offense. So it really wasn't in the image of Shane Steichen and how he wanted to play. It was heavily influenced by Anthony Lynn. But even then, we're talking about 2020, no training camp because of COVID. Justin Herbert comes in for Tyrod Taylor, who had a punctured lung
against the Chiefs,
against one of the best teams in the league, and lit them up. And Justin Herbert, despite playing behind the 32nd ranked offensive line, had the best rookie season that we've ever seen from a statistical standpoint. So I think there's a lot of revisionist history that happens with him. Like, oh, he came into this perfect situation. I mean, Herbert was projected by many to not even be a great quarterback. He was projected to be a bust. That's the truth of it. And then he came and he exceeded everybody's expectations. The only year that I can really say that Herbert was in a good situation was 2021. That's really it. But outside of that, I don't see it. And then offense situation is one thing. But then when you talk about defensive situation, that's a whole nother thing. And that's why Brandon Staley has lost the excuse with me because
easily
Robert Saleh turned the Jets defense around in one season. His first year as a head coach, he was the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL.
He did get a Joe Douglas masterclass in an offseason.
I understand, but here's my rebuttal to that. first year Robert Saleh, 32nd ranked defense. The next year,
Personnel
the
was
Jets had the
horrible.
4th ranked defense. Our personnel, we did add Sauce Gardner.
Uh-huh.
We did add
DJ.
DJ Reed,
Yes.
Jordan Whitehead. Those were great additions.
Of course.
But Brandon Staley, from his first year to his second year, who did he add? J.C. Jackson, Khalil
got
Mack,
injured. Oh, okay. Khalil did play a good portion. of the season.
Sebastian Joseph Day,
He was
Austin
mid.
Johnson. Those are 4 solid players. J.C. Jackson did get hurt, but when J.C. Jackson was healthy, he was one of the
showing
worst corners in
himself, yeah.
football.
No doubt.
So
That's
I
5
seen
game sample size. He was
So-
not good.
So I seen Robert Saleh turn around the Jets defense, and you know what? Robert
He
Saleh,
gets credit for sure.
back with the 49ers, his first year as DC with the Niners, they were a bottom barrel defense.
Oh, that too.
He
Yeah, I was
goes
gonna
and he
say.
turns around that defense
Correct.
too. So that's why I'm not giving Staley no excuses, because if you are a great defensive play caller and game designer, you can turn around the defense and you don't need that long to do it. He has moments of brilliance, like the game against the Dolphins. He designed a great game plan pressing
Sure.
those Dolphins receivers, but there's too many instances where he is the problem. And if you're a defensive head coach, your defense cannot be the problem. And that's my biggest issue with Brandon Staley. And that's why, I'm glad to have a head coach like Robert Saleh.
Shout out to Rob,
Taylor
man.
2 years, man.
Yeah, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed.
Changed the entire
Joe
defense.
Douglas,
Changed the
legendary.
But in those years, we
activity.
still had Quinnen. We still
That
had
DJ Reed
JFM.
contract's is probably the best in the NFL.
Can we
One
be
of.
honest? Is the first round that Joe Douglas had last year one of the greatest of all time?
Yeah, Sauce and
It could go
Garrett.
down as one.
I mean, that changes your franchise.
Also, Quinnen taking the leap that he did. That's a credit to Robert.
and you got CJ Mosley
bounced
bounce back.
Yes, that's a credit to Robert.
Michael
Quinnen
Carter
was
was
not-
really good.
Even Robert Saleh's first year as head coach, Quinnen broke out onto the scene. Quinnen was always progressing, but it really wasn't until Saleh got there where he became a household defensive tackle in the league. The Jets had another draft. I think it was 06, I believe, or 05, where we
When we had
drafted.
we had 4
Yeah.
first round picks.
We drafted Nick Mangold
yeah.
and DeBrickashaw Ferguson.
Yeah.
That's a legend.
Yeah.
2 legendary players
Yeah.
right there.
I don't know, man. These drafts come along, every
and
so
they
often.
said Jermaine Johnson's been the star of camp so far.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear that
Jermaine
for you guys.
Johnson. Listen, man, we're gonna.
Any
Be
news on
crazy.
Will?
McDonald's?
Yeah.
Not a ton.
It's gonna be a
JSN
rotational pass
JSN
rusher.
should have just.
Yeah.
He should be a Jet right
I know.
now.
I would have loved that. Would have loved that.
But I understand the pick. I was playing Madden the other day. I was the Jets.
Here we go.
Made it all the way to the Super Bowl. I lost.
Oh.
Actually, no, I made it to the. I lied. I made it to the AFC Championship.
Choke
and I
artist.
lost.
Sue
The,
Chiefs.
the Broncos.
The
Yeah,
Broncos.
whatever.
Say no to Madden.
Loser.
Yeah, whatever. I lost to the Broncos, and I'm looking at the contracts and how they're structured. The reason why I'm not down on the Will McDonald pick
Uh-huh.
is because Carl Lawson next year is going to have a big cap hit,
Mhm.
and he's been declining. So the
Yeah.
Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald picks are for the eventual departures of Carl Lawson and maybe John Franklin Myers down the line.
JFM could kick inside
Yeah,
too, though. So you got some
That's the
more
thing. So
stability.
if we have Quinnen and JFM in the inside, we have McDonald and Jermaine on the outside, and now the loss of Carl
Right
Lawson
stuff.
isn't that big. So that Will McDonald was a pick made a year early for the eventual departure of Carl Lawson. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it now.
Yeah. could cut
JSN,
Corey Davis
sorry.
next year. Now we need a receiver. You
Just-
know?
just-
Yeah.
Or
With
Corey
love.
Davis' contract might be up.
He could have
next
cut
year.
him this
With-
year.
With
Yeah.
love. Jason should have.
Right there with you.
So easy.
Right there with you.
So easy.
You don't see Will McDonald could become a top 5 pass rusher in the league.
Oh heavens, I'd love that.
JSN.
Top 10.
JSN's
Top
just
15.
going to be, he's going to be one of the best route runners in year 1.
People don't talk about Bryce Huff enough, man.
They don't.
Don't talk about
Situational.
Bryce Huff.
Uh-huh.
Situational.
That's what McDonald will be this year.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have so many rotating guys, man.
Facts.
And
That's what they
gonna keep
want.
our guys
Defense is
fresh.
going to be special, man.
Drew, you have
Did
Russell
we-
Wilson jersey on.
I was going to
Always.
say, did we just sign a new deal with Mojo? Did we negotiate week 1 tickets to the Bills and Jets?
I have to check in with Harrison with that one.
Facts.
Bolted.
I'm hoping that we did though. The tickets are not that expensive.
No, I was looking today.
To sit at the 300s.
Cheapest is like 150.
Yeah.
For the one
In heaven?
300s. Yeah.
Oh, hell no.
Week 1 Monday Night Football. Rogers' first game. You had to know.
Bro, Monday night is such a vibe.
Yeah. Now we got to get there.
Now, when I went to the Monday night game for the Jaguars and Jets, obviously I was
Thursday
head
night.
to toe.
Thursday,
That's
yeah.
what I meant to say. Excuse me. I was head to toe. It was freezing. One of the worst outfits
it
you
was
ever
a shitty
seen,
day.
but I needed to stay warm. I don't care how I looked. It was still amazing. It was still amazing. And the Jets fans were in misery. And now it wasn't amazing because the Jets fans were upset. It was just great atmosphere. The game started. The fireworks were going off. The crowd was going crazy. It's just a different atmosphere. For the
once
primetime
it's like
games.
November, I'm done.
I would have been there in the stands being like, yo, give Zach some time.
That's funny because I made the Mojo video, ironically, now that we're talking about it, talking about me shorting Zach Wilson. And that's
probably
last
when
game
he went.
played.
Yeah, so he probably went in the fucking tank after
He
that.
dipped twice last year.
Yeah, after the
After the
Pats.
Patriots.
I came up.
And
Like
then after the
150.
Jags
Yeah.
game.
I mean, you get benched for Chris Trevler.
I was geeking.
They won them all. He's having a great camp,
Don't
though.
sleep.
He's having a great camp.
He's
Yankees-
really good.
Yankees are winning.
What's the score?
3-1.
Here we go.
Aren't the Yankees bad this year?
No,
They're mid.
we're not as good as we normally are.
The Mets are mid too.
Mets are bad.
Or I took it. So Mojo has these new bets that you can make.
They're under 500. We aren't.
Okay. Mojo has these new bets that you
beat
can
them.
make.
Yes, sir.
Who?
Smoke them, actually.
The Red Sox?
No,
No,
the
no,
Yankees.
Yeah. I was
So
gonna say Red Sox won 2 or 3 against you guys.
it's basically a bet that the odds keep increasing. You have the potential to make more money because they have MLB bets now. And I don't watch the MLB, so I just took the shit for shits and
He
giggles.
texted me.
It was basically you're picking the Red Sox or the Mets, or you could pick both of them to pitch perfect through 3 first innings.
I've seen
So,
the promo
no-
recently.
Yeah, so nobody gets on base, right? I bet $25 on the Mets and I bet $25 on the Red Sox. The Red Sox were perfect in the first inning. I mean, it was a thing of beauty. They were perfect. My money went up a significant amount, and I was like, this is good. The Mets first fucking pitch, they were out, bro. They were gone. I was dumb tight. Then second inning comes. The Red Sox are pitching, right? Pete Alonso's on the base. It's 0-2 though. You only need one more strike and Alonso's out, and you got 4 balls to get it and try to
I gotcha.
give
I
us some
gotcha,
misdirection.
I gotcha.
Pete Alonso gets on base, and I lost the bet. And I was thinking about cashing out. And guess what? The next 3 motherfuckers that went to bet
out.
all went out.
Yeah.
And I was like, my goodness, Pete Alonso just couldn't get out, bro. I would have turned my $25 into $200 just
I
there.
mean, 3 perfect innings is impressive. Also, the Angels just took Ohtani off the trade market, so he will not be getting moved.
They're corny, but I get it. It's one
I
of the
wouldn't
best,
trade him either. Yeah.
arguably the best ever.
But yeah, the bets are you have a chance to make a lot of money. Like the Mets one was $100 to win $2,400.
God,
If they go perfect,
Yeah.
Oh, we had
Through
Carrasco
three-
pitching.
through-
That's
through
why.
3 first.
I was gonna
innings.
say Zach Gallen did it. I think something like that.
On
I
the
saw. Yeah, the
Diamondbacks. Yeah.
Diamondbacks.
They had-
Facts.
And for the Red Sox, it was $100 for like $1,400 you could make. So that's why I was trying to thug it out. You know what I'm saying? My 25 turned into like 90, but I was trying to thug it out and be like, you know what? I'm just gonna ride it and let's see what happens. Now, Drew, you have a Russell Wilson jersey
I do.
on. I know you're very optimistic for this comeback season,
Mm.
and part of me, actually, no, I don't. I don't hope that it happens. I'll be honest, but I also am pessimistic it happens, and the reason why I'm not hoping it happens is because I don't want to get your hopes up. It happens because I don't think it's actually going to happen, but you do. So, what's your reasoning behind Russ being great again and the Broncos being a great team and maybe making a playoffs for the first time since 2015, I believe?
Yeah,
it
the
is.
year that we won the whole thing. We have the same amount of championships in that amount of years than you guys have in your entire franchise. So to talk
We're
about
about
the
to do some big
Broncos,
things
what
this year.
I'm really excited to do is just talk about Broncos football. It just seems like
We're back.
we've talked about all these XYZ teams, a whole season of basketball. We're finally back with Broncos football. And I get it. Last year was my year in the preseason. We were having a bunch of fun. I finally got my franchise quarterback. And then the season happens. And of course, we're one of the worst offenses in the league per play. We were last in points, 28th in yards, 29th in plays per drive, and scoring. We scored points on 28.6% of our total drives. That was second worst in the league. We were generationally bad. It was really unfortunate, especially understanding that we're getting Russell Wilson. This is a future first ballot Hall of Famer. To be as disappointing as it was really unfortunate for me to watch. But here are some strong takeaways that I've got, right? From weeks 1 through 16, we ran a West Coast offense. And essentially that is trying to cater to a lot of Russell Wilson's weaknesses. That's just not how Russell Wilson plays the game. And Hackett refused to change his scheme. We fired him week 16. From weeks 1 through 16, play action rate, we only ran it 18% of the time. That was the lowest in the league. I believe a league average is around 28, 29%. And so from week 17 through 18, we ran play action 34% of the time. Now that's playing to Russell's strengths because of course he likes to play action, get outside the pocket, move the ball downfield. And I understand people may believe that Russ holds the ball too long. I can understand that for sure. But really, he's at his best when he's getting outside the pocket and making things get done. From weeks 1 through 16, passing rate outside of the pocket was only 15.8%. From week 17 through 18, that is when Hackett was no longer with the team, that went up to 24%. And why I'm left optimistic, because in these 2 weeks, this was easily Russell Wilson's best football of the season. He looked more himself. He was getting outside. He was moving the football, running with his legs. Now we're coming into this offseason. And now we have a new head coach and one of the better coaches that's been around in our lifetime, Sean Payton, especially in terms of offensive play calling. And so now we get Sean Payton. Now Russell Wilson, understanding now he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. He decided, hey, I'm going to dedicate this offseason to my body. I'm going to slim down a little bit. He's done exactly that. He's coming in more locked in than he has in some time. And also now Russ is 100% healthy. Last season, a lot of undercover things that we didn't know. Had a shoulder injury, had a lower body injury. Of course, now that comes in after the fact because there's excuses. Hey, I'm a fan, but I can also acknowledge that excuses are excuses. That's essentially what they were, but that's also truth. And you're injured. And of course, you have all these expectations on you. There's a lot of pressure as well. You underperform. It's an unfortunate combination, but what I am taking with it is now we saw Russell Wilson at least be good in his worst season by far. And I'm talking about the last 2 weeks when Nathaniel Hackett was gone. And now I'm looking for this offense and why I feel optimistic. You're asking me what's going to be different. Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine. And mostly I'm talking about Javonte Williams because I understand that in terms of skill set, he has the ability to be one of the more talented in the league. And Russell Wilson, who's not been one of these guys that's historically known for throwing to the running back, like I mentioned earlier, threw to the running back the most of his career last season. I believe it was around 24%. And so with Samaje Perine now being added, who was a big part of Cincinnati's passing attack as well in terms of Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine got a lot of that passing work, and he was pretty effective. When in a Sean Payton offense, the last couple of years of Drew Brees' career, he wasn't the type of guy that could push the ball downfield. In his prime, they were one of the most prolific passing offenses in the league. But towards the back half of his career, back end of his career, let me not say back half, towards the back end of his career, he became one of those guys that was throwing between the 0 to 9 yards, really just dumping off to the running back. The offense really became running back centric. And of course, that's Alvin Kamara, that's Mark Ingram. These are some talented backs that he's played with. But now Russell Wilson, who already in year 1 with the Broncos was catering to the running back, he will be doing that again in year 2. And I think that would be a little bit more a point of emphasis. And now last year, I was really high on my wide receiving core. This year, I'm a little bit more back down to earth. But what I'm also optimistic about is, you mentioned it to me, we've had a couple of conversations these last 2 days about how you don't think Jerry Jeudy's going to break out and that it's getting delusional at this point. He's not one of the best route runners in the league. Listen, you made some valid points. You showed me some solid statistics, but also I can understand where he's not great against zone coverage. He is very good against man coverage. And I believe last year against man coverage, he averaged 3.61 yards per route. That is extremely great, especially against man coverage. He can get open. And I see Courtland Sutton. I'm not as high as I was on him last year. Last season, it was pretty disappointing. But it's understanding we're getting Tim Patrick back, and hopefully Jerry Jeudy is now assigned to the outside. Last year in weeks, I believe it was 14 or 15, whichever 2 weeks that Courtland Sutton wasn't healthy for, was not playing. Courtland Sutton, he basically made Jerry Jeudy a slot receiver. Jerry Jeudy played 55% in the slot. Now, when Courtland Sutton missed some time, Jerry Jeudy played 81% in the slot. 15 catches on 17 targets, over 140 yards, and had 3 touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy is the better receiver at this point in time. We need to be catering this offense towards Jerry. And I think that in a Sean Payton offense, he is going to be the primary target for Russell Wilson as well. And we also improved this offensive line, adding Mike McGlinchey, who I understand that you're not very high on, but especially in a Sean Payton offense, when we're going to be catering to the running back as much as we will be, Mike McGlinchey, one of the better run blocking offensive tackles in the game. Adding Ben Powers, who's also great at run blocking himself. Garrett Bowles now comes back from injury. There's just a lot going in our favor on the offensive side of the ball. We're finally getting healthy. That was a huge reason why we weren't as great as we were last year. Outside of course, disappointing offensive play calling, disappointing quarterback play, we were decimated with injuries. Now, to talk about the defense, which was incredible last season, that was a question mark. We weren't worried about the offense, but the defense was in question with Vic Fangio no longer being in town. The Broncos defensive unit shut that down. We're one of the best defensive units in the game. But going into this season, there's a little bit of concern for me personally on the defensive line. You really can't count on Randy Gregory to be healthy. He missed a few games last season, or more than a few games. Let's be realistic. Baron Browning now starting this offseason on the PUP list. Punsel also starting this offseason on the PUP list. These are two players that can be removed prior to the season starting, of course. But nevertheless, that's not something you love, especially first day of training camp. Our secondary is going to be solid, of course. We have arguably the best corner in the game. My opinion, the best corner in the game. Of course, I'm a Broncos fan. I'm going to say that, but he gives me valid argument. He shadowed, I believe he was given the shadow assignment 7 times last season. He's just truly one of those lockdown man-to-man corners. We have one of the best safeties in the game in Justin Simmons, but really where it comes to question is our strong safe, because Kareem Jackson is injury prone at this point in time. He's an older player, solid player for sure, but at this point, that's definitely a position that we can look to be improving. And then, of course, Mathis, a rookie cornerback last season who was solid, one of the more targeted cornerbacks in the game, but he did a great job of holding his own. Quan Williams is another one that I want to give credit to. But it's really that's the defensive line that is my huge concern. Because with Barron, who was one of our best defensive linemen last season, especially after the Bradley Chubb trade occurred, for him to be injured and for that to be a question mark, Randy Gregory not being the most reliable, that's something that's a cause for concern to me. But really why I'm optimistic is Sean Payton he has full control of this offense. And Russell Wilson's coming in motivated. He's coming in more slimmed down, coming in great shape to training camp. I couldn't ask for something more if I'm a Broncos fan, especially after a disappointing first season with Russ and company.
Sean Payton did not hide what he wanted this team to be. He went out and signed 2 offensive linemen, and Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers. Now, him doing that, yeah, you improve the offensive line from a run blocking standpoint. Mike McGlinchey is average in pass pro. It tells me that,
hey, he allowed very few pressures. You like to say that, but he was one of the least allowed pressure tackles in the game last year.
We'll come back to this midseason.
You keep saying that, but I got the stats to show you. Mike McGlinchey was like that.
Okay, you keep the stats.
Mike McGlinchey, let's do it.
Listen,
he doesn't allow more than 10 pressures.
No, Sean Payton told us what this offense is going to be. It's going to be a run-first offense, and I think it's actually a full circle moment for Russell Wilson, who wanted to leave Seattle because it was too of a run-heavy offense, and he wanted to be like Patrick Mahomes and air it out, but he realized that he's not that guy. There's only one of those guys, and Mahomes is not, and Russell Wilson is not that guy.
Quit the glazing, Jesus fucking Christ!
Hey, he's not that guy. He's not.
We're 2 segments past this.
No, I'm saying because he wanted to be like that.
We wanted to let Russ
he
go.
wanted to be like
we
that.
Did want to let Russ
you
go.
know what's funny is that he had Shane Waldron just like Geno did. Geno goes into a spot and says, I'm going to have the best Seattle Seahawks quarterback statistically ever. We're going to forget about Russ. The defense, the Legion of Boom defense in the Seattle days, they don't even like Russ. Every single chance they get, they throw shots at him, which kind of...
Yeah, they're bitter.
Oh, they are? Are they bitter?
No, they're bitter because they should be
carry those teams.
Okay, if you allow me to finish, they deserve credit, but they feel as if a lot of credit is given to Russell Wilson.
Because they knew what it was.
Because they do deserve credit because they're one of the best defense we've ever seen.
Most credit.
Go ahead.
Quarterback gets the credit.
That's it.
So he didn't hide what he wanted to do. I think Sean Payton looked at the film when he took the job and before he took the job and said, this is going to be tougher than I think. And we have to make our offense very particular. Now, Sean Payton has had success with an older Drew Brees, with Teddy Bridgewater, with Jameis Winston. The difference between what the Broncos offense is going to be and what the Saints offense is that those things you said Russ struggles with, the timing-based concepts, getting the ball out quickly, that's what Brees excelled at.
No doubt.
And Russ has never been that in his career. He doesn't target the middle of the field. He does hold on to the ball, and he hits hole shots. Now, the reason why he has a Hall of Fame career is because he's been one of the most efficient quarterbacks at hitting those hole shots ever.
He's one of the best deep ball throwers ever, yeah.
So that's why, but this offense is not going to be anything like the Drew Brees one because he cannot execute it like Drew Brees. And I think even though Drew Brees' arm was diminishing, there was still a high floor for the offense because he was so pinpoint accurate in those short and intermediate areas. And I don't think that's gonna be Russ. I just don't think so. This is gonna be a run-first football team, play action heavy, get Russ rolling out, hitting hole shots. But with the increase in what teams play nowadays in too high coverage and really limiting those shots, it just feels like the NFL defense, the modern defense, has caught up to that type of play style. And that's the biggest concern with me. As much as Nathaniel Hackett deserves blame, game management, getting the team at the same level.
We were horrible in penalties. We led the league in delay of games. It was terrible.
And yes, while Hackett did have a West Coast offense and it didn't fit Russ' strengths, I mean, the Broncos knew what they were getting when they hired Hackett. Hackett comes from that type of system, comes from the LaFleur, Shanahan tree. That was his offense all along. So, telling him to come in, one, they thought they were getting Aaron Rodgers, and then it was Russell Wilson. With Aaron Rodgers, it would have worked just fine. But with Russell Wilson, who that's not him, it didn't work. Last year, Russell Wilson, and this is why I don't blame it on Hackett, in these stable passing metrics, he was bottom of the league. Passing without pressure, he was 34th. From the pocket, he was 29th. Short layup throws, he was 41st. Passing with under 2.5 seconds, so quick timing-based throws, 31st. Less stable metrics, passing under pressure, he was 30th. Outside the pocket on play action, 38th. When blitz, 37th. On third or fourth down, 35th. With over 2.5 seconds, 32nd. So his strengths last year, even on those play action passes, on those rollouts, even when he's holding on to the ball, he was bad, like across every metric.
Our team also did lead the league in drops. I mean, Sutton was bad. Jerry Jeudy also struggled with drops pretty terribly. I just want to give a little bit of
even with the drops,
you're
you're not going to be bottom of the barrel, even with those drops accounted. And you know what's alarming about that is that the Broncos played the 9th easiest schedule of passing defense last year, and they're going to face a harder schedule this year. So all those things kind of just make me believe that maybe we've seen Russ decline. When I made my quarterback list, I gave some respect to Russ because there's a chance
you gave him a decent amount. He's 14.
Number 14.
That's 14. Very respectful.
I gave him some respect. Gonna see if he bounces back. I'm not gonna write him off after 1 year, but I am very skeptical about how he's gonna look. And if he looks great, it'll shock me more than if he just looks average. And I think this is a great case study in the type of quarterback prototype that he is, because he is a running quarterback. And he relied heavily on his athleticism. Quarterbacks that are pocket passers can last longer in the NFL. Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Payton, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, even, who had a pretty good season with the Colts. Yeah, Matt Ryan to an extent, yes.
Matt Stafford, but he's
getting injured left and right. Russell Wilson relies on athleticism in his arm heavily. So maybe for him at 34 years old, the drop-off age for him is around this area because his play style is so different from these other quarterbacks. But at the end of the day, the Denver Broncos signed Russell Wilson to be a top quarterback in the NFL and to compete with the top quarterbacks in the AFC. And you can argue, actually, it's probably a fact that he's the worst of the best quarterbacks. And if that's the case, with all the other rosters being really good or great, it's just hard for me to see that the Broncos are going to make this swift turnaround. I think the floor is high with Payton, but I just don't view them as a team more than a wild card team.
That's respectful. Yeah, that's fine.
I was gonna say I love you guys, man. You got the optimistic view, more of a pessimistic view. Will Russ have a bounce back year? And Joel, you had a lot of great stats. But even still, it's hard for me to judge what Russell Wilson did last year just for what it is, right? It's hard for me to even though all the numbers you rattle off were terrible, we're talking bottom of the league bad. It's hard for me to just kind of take it as it is, pause, and just, say this is what Russell Wilson is. Last year, between Nathaniel Hackett being, one of the worst head coaches we've ever seen, the play calling, this was a team that couldn't even get to the line of scrimmage before the play clock was at 0. And there was just so much going wrong that even Russell Wilson, who is a first ballot Hall of Famer, a guy that you would think can overcome a lot, it was even too much for him to overcome, right? There's a very select few guys that I think could have overcame what the issues the Denver Broncos had last year. And not only was it Nathaniel Hackett, but the injury bug bit you guys pretty bad.
Terrible.
Garrett Bowles, who was turning into one of the best tackles in the game, missed basically the whole year. Lloyd Cushenberry was injured. Randy Gregory, your big free agent signing, only played 4 games. Justin Simmons missed a handful of games. Before the season, Tim Patrick got hurt. Javonte got hurt early into the season. And, you're battling all of these different things, being in a
living
new
in them.
city, being on a new team. You have brand new ownership. You have the new head coach, and then all of these injuries that come with it. Let alone being in division with Justin Herbert, with Patrick Mahomes, and the Raiders even finish above you, right? So it was kind of just a bath of everything that could possibly goes wrong for the Denver Broncos. And now comes in Sean Payton, who can't cover up injuries, right? You're still going to have injuries, happens to every team. But he's going to be a hell of an upgrade over Nathaniel Hackett.
Easily.
He's going to be such an upgrade. It's hard to even comprehend. Sean Payton had 15 years as a Saints head coach. Took over in 2006. The year prior, 2005, they were 31st in offensive scoring. After that, 5th, 12th, 1st, 11th, 2nd, 3rd, 10th, 9th, 2nd, 4th, 3rd, 5th, 19th.
God bless him.
10 of those years, they finished a top 5 scoring offense 67% of the time. When he was with New Orleans, a top 5 scoring offense. And listen, you had Drew Brees. I get it. Hall of Fame quarterback. Maybe I shouldn't be expecting a top 5 offense, but I think it would be just
still went over 500 or over 500 with Ian Book.
Yeah, you would just be, I think, disingenuous to think that nothing's going to happen with this Broncos team, that they're going to be bad again offensively. There's going to be upgrades here, but
you're back in.
But
that's what I'm hearing.
But Joel, I am step for step with you with how this offense is going to look.
You're a bitch.
I do not think we all wanted Russ to come to Denver and let Russ cook. We wanted Russ to come to Denver and show off his arm. We want him to have the 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns. But I don't think that's what this offense is going to look like, right? Like you mentioned, his first 2 moves, fucking day one on the job. Mike McGlinchey, Ben Powers. That was his first 2 moves, bringing on the offensive line. What you needed, without a doubt, with what you needed. I think if everyone stays healthy, you guys should have a top 10, 15 offensive line league as long as Garrett Bowles is there. One of the best left tackles
is also
in the game.
One of the better guards in the game too.
Yeah, for sure. He was ranked 6th per PFF. But I do think this offense is going to be a run-first offense with Russell Wilson off of play action, bootlegs, that type of offense. I mean, with Drew Brees, Drew Brees obviously had all those records in New Orleans, 5,000 yards. Like he was going crazy, but a lot of those years, whether it was Deuce McAllister, Pierre Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram later on, like these were constantly Reggie Bush. They were constantly 1,000-yard rushers, constantly top of the teams in terms of efficiency running, because obviously they threw a ball with Tony Drew Brees, but efficiency-wise, constantly top of the league. And now you have Javonte Williams, who looks like he's going to be ready for week 1. Samaje Perine, who's more of a pass blocker / receiving back. But I do think this is a team that's going to rely heavily on the run game. They're going to rely heavily on a defense that we're expecting to be elite yet again. And Russell Wilson is going to have to play off of that. Now, if you're a Broncos fan, it's probably not ideally what you want to hear. You pay Russell Wilson the $240 million, whatever it was, to be a top 5 type quarterback. How much?
I think 245.
245. You paid him that money to be a top 5 quarterback. You paid him that money to be able to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow in the AFC. Unfortunately, I don't see that ceiling with Russell Wilson anymore.
No.
I think he could still be he could be an above average quarterback, but I have a hard time believing he's just going to get back to that elite level we saw in Seattle. This is a team that could still be a wild card team. I have them around 9-10 wins, but to Joel's point, I don't see the ceiling, right? You have Russ, who feels limited. You have receivers who I like Judy, but I feel like the days of Judy becoming a top 10 type receiver are probably past him. Cortland Sutton, post ACL injury, hasn't looked the same.
You changed.
And the guys behind him, I like Marvin Mims a lot, but KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick, they're nice players.
He's better than KJ.
You fucking changed.
Marvin Mims.
No, me too. I said behind Marvin Mims. I like Marvin Mims more than the other guys they have. I like Greg Dulcich as well.
This is a stabbing in the heart. Forget the back.
I'm giving you a wild card. I'm giving you a wild card type of season.
You're out on Judy now.
I'm out on Judy becoming the receiver I thought he was going to be.
He's not a wide receiver. He's not the first target.
I was with you last year saying Judy could be a wide receiver 1. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. It's very rarely you see a year 5 breakout from a receiver and they just turn into a top 10.
He had a mini breakout last season on one of the worst offenses in the league, one of the worst offenses in fucking league history.
But you don't even see mini breakouts. You see straight up breakouts from receivers, usually earlier than later on their career. What receiver? I mean, like Tay is one that stands out. That was like year 3.
I'm not going to say that Jerry Judy can be Tay.
I know, but I'm just saying, you go through the history of receivers, you don't see many guys break out in year 5 and become top 10 receivers.
Like I said, he had a mini breakout last season.
What's a mini breakout?
He had almost 1,000 yards.
It's year 5.
6 touchdowns. And 3 touchdowns were in the last 2 weeks.
Okay, so he had
Respect
three. So
him.
he had 3 touchdowns for the first 17 weeks or 16 weeks.
The offense was god awful.
I know. Listen, I think Judy could be a really good wide receiver too. I don't.
He needs to be the X. I mean,
Yeah.
wide receiver 2 in general.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
He needs to be the number 1 receiver on the
I agree.
Broncos.
That's where he shined the most. But I don't see this offense being a top 5, top 8 type scoring. Offense.
Dehls, you know what's funny? I agree with you step for step about what you're talking about. I think you're talking a lot of good things.
Fucking seesaw over
You know, CeeDee Lamb as a rookie, 935 yards.
You like that one?
That was good.
Thanks, bro.
CeeDee Lamb as a rookie, 935 yards, 5 touchdowns, 74 receptions. Your dad got hurt with Ben DiNucci, Garrett Gilbert, and Andy Dalton. If you're
Andy Dalton,
if you're a good wide receiver, you're gonna produce. You're gonna at least find a way in one
rookie
of 4
season.
seasons.
Judy had 800 receiving.
That wasn't 935. It was 935.
Again, in a
Not-
way
not-
better
935.
offense. Andy Dalton
Colbys
clears Drew Lock.
Andy Dalton
going.
is solid.
Keep going.
But listen, the thing is with this Broncos team, and it was a lot of this last year, is that it's just a bunch of projection and optimism. Jerry Judy's gonna finally become that guy. Javonte Williams coming off an ACL injury. Did he tear his ACL?
Yeah,
he tore legitimately everything, but he's back already.
But historically, running backs with ACL injuries don't perform. Oh, we're gonna get a Javonte breakout. We're gonna get a Jerry Judy breakout. Jerry Judy.
Did I say Javonte? I'm just optimistic.
Yeah,
God forbid.
that's fine.
But you need Javonte to be.
You don't need that. You
good
don't need that.
great
Drew, you're
for
being
this
optimistic.
rushing offense to be great.
In the terms that he could be healthy and fine.
Well, okay, you're being optimistic. I don't think we're
1,000
being
yards?
necessarily pessimistic. We're not saying they're going to win 6 games.
Scrimmage?
No, 1,000 rushing yards.
The thing is, I feel like he's going to be featured a lot as a pass catching back as well. 1,000 rushing. I got to see if he's ready week 1.
Yeah. I mean, typically, even if he's going to be on the field, you usually see a dip in production. I think 2024, he could be, 1,000%. He could get that 1,000 yards. But if
no
you
one's saying
think
he could be AP, there's, of course, a
no.
poor man's that. No.
But what's your, I guess, I don't want to spoil our rankings, but like, what do you see the ceiling for this team
I
being?
have it similar as you guys, 10, 11 wins. I'm just saying in a nicer tone. That's all. I see this as a wild card.
Okay,
We're a wild card team. We're not going to be competing for division so long as Andy Reid's alive and well. And I make sure system QB.
With the Broncos, the offense is question marks for me. A lot of question marks. I think Jerry Judy's solid. Like if he was the number 2 behind Stephon Diggs in Buffalo, I'm like, wow, they finally have that guy, like a reliable target. But for him,
no shit.
No
shit.
Yeah, but for you to count on him as your best receiver on a team it's being overly optimistic.
I have no choice.
Yeah, but you could say that, but also realize it's not ideal.
He's gonna have over 1,000 this year. I'll put my life.
If he stays healthy, I think he can.
Yeah.
Not even better than Christian Kirk.
But like 20 plus receivers get 1,000 every year.
You thought Christian Kirk was made by Collar. He went to the Jaguars and said,
"Hey, he went to
this,
play
Drew."
with Trevor Lawrence."
Oh, he said, "Look at this, Drew."
And he made Evan Ingram good again, and Zay Jones good again.
He said, "Look at this, Drew."
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence is a goat.
Christian Kirk is one of the best players against man coverage, even in Arizona.
Yeah, he's a slot merchant.
Yeah. All right, so there's a lot of players that are like that. It does not matter.
I disagree. I'm just being very, very rude.
And
right
the defense,
I like Christian.
Secondary is great. But the front 7 is definitely a concern. And
it's more the line. I believe in Jewell. I believe in Singleton. It's just the line's shaky.
And Evero, going from Evero to Vance Joseph is going to be a drop off. The 8 quarterbacks you guys face, which is half of the schedule, basically.
Yeah.
Colt McCoy, Trace McSorley, Baker Mayfield, Tyler Huntley, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Davis Mills, and Matt Ryan. Those were 8 quarterbacks you faced. This year, you're going to face a way better schedule of quarterbacks.
Which makes no sense. But
so for me, I don't know, man. I'm just kind of, I see like 9 wins, but I'm kind of really teetering on 8 at this point because I just don't know how Russ is going to look, and I'm not banking on this comeback season from him. I'm just not.
I think he'll be more efficient. I don't think the total numbers, the total passing yards, the total passing touchdowns are going to be what we're expecting, but you got to hope. I mean, I don't want to call him a game manager, but in this offense with his defense, you want him to be a high-level game manager. I think that's kind of what you should expect from Russ. I don't know, Drew. Is that me being rude? Or are you still expecting Russ to be a top?
He definitely needs to be more than a game manager for us.
A high-level game manager.
He needs to be more than that. I'm sorry.
And
Judy also missed 2 games last year, just so you guys are aware of that.
Y'all traded for the wrong Seahawks quarterback, man.
That's funny.
I guess so.
Oh,
Listen,
man.
something about the Seattle system. It's great, but I believe in Russ.
He needs to be more than that, but will he be more than that?
I think he will with Sean Payton.
Will he be better than Geno Smith this upcoming season?
It's tough, man. That's tough. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN,
Oh, that clears what y'all got.
Kenneth Walker, solid offensive line. Just suddenly, it's amazing. Zach Charbonnet, Pete Carroll. Need to put respect on his
That's
name.
a top 5 offense in the league.
I don't disagree. I mean, it's extremely top.
Yes.
Top 5 strong. I said I don't disagree. I think it'll be a high level offense. Let's say top 8. Just for conversation, so we don't need to get caught up in semantics. Great offense in the league. Seattle's is definitely one of them.
That's Geno Smith, another 30 touchdown season.
70% completion again.
Geno, man, that's the Smithian. You better respect Smith, man. It's disrespect. I'm actually very.
I haven't disrespected Geno once.
I have these visions every once in a while in my head. During the NFL season, I could picture it now. Who do you guys face? The Broncos week 1. Who is it?
Miami? No,
I think it's Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. I can see it now. Russell Wilson, good statistical game. Jerry Jeudy. Drew's gonna come out flying with the tweets.
Well, it's Vegas.
They told me Russ,
we haven't beat in the last 6 games. We're 0-6.
That's a tough look
against Vegas.
3 years not being the Raiders is a tough look.
We can beat the Chargers, but God forbid we face Vegas.
This is the year.
The good thing is that the
More than
Broncos,
once.
Josh Jacobs might not be there. Who knows?
the Broncos have one of the better records all time, weeks 1 and 2 when they're at home, and they'll be at home for week 1 because teams traveling there in that altitude is going to be tough.
You don't want to come play Mile High.
So I think you guys can start the season off 1-0, 2-0. Who do you face week 2?
Washington.
Yeah, the beginning of your schedule.
No, the beginning of our schedule is daddy-ish. Yeah. It's fucking pretty. Vegas, Washington, then at Miami. I have a loss there. At Chicago, not ideal. Going to be a good matchup.
Game,
definitely winnable. Versus the Jets, I got a W there. Then at Kansas City, no. I think that's a loss for sure.
Our defense is clamping y'all, bro.
Whatever.
DJ Reader Sauce would clamp Judy. He would lock him, bro.
Yeah, the hold merchant. What happened last time? Remember when Cortland Sutton caught a touchdown or whatever? I think it was pass interference, no call on the game on the line.
I was like one of the few that Sauce let up.
I'm just letting you know against the Broncos, ironically. Do you want to just go through the schedule for?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Vegas, Washington, I got us 2-0 there. At Miami, that's a loss. I have at Chicago. I think we'll win that game versus the Jets. That could go either way.
So you're starting 4-1.
I know. Well, 3-1 in my eyes. Again,
you have the Jets.
Like I just said, it'll be a very good game. But we're at home, so that's why it'll be a great game.
Fucked up. We have to play them back-to-back years in Denver.
Yeah, that is not ideal.
Y'all can't stop.
Especially what you did to us last year, man. AVT and
our offensive line is going to be a lot better this year.
You're counting on Lloyd Cushenberry to stop Q.
Yeah, I don't feel great about it. But Quinn also will get some push on that side as well.
And then we got, Garrett Wilson versus Passer 10. Oh, yeah, Garrett Wilson's going to dominate that matchup. Garrett Wilson going to do his thing against
Let me ask you guys a question. Are you guys going to be surprised when Passer 10 holds him to only like 20 yards?
Nah. You mean when he holds them for what would have been a 20-yard game, but defensive pass interference? No, I will not.
Are you talking about
Garrett Wilson's going to have 100 yards in that game.
Sauce Gardner is actually the hold merchant. So anyways, at Kansas City, I have a loss there. Versus Green Bay. That's another one that we got to see how Jordan comes out. But as of right now, I feel confident that we can win that game, especially because our defense is going to be able to stop that group of guys. Versus Kansas City, I'll be fucking damned if I have a loss here. This is a W. We're ending the streak here. I feel very good about this one. This is the year. Every year we get very close. That game in MetLife is always the closest game of the season with the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe this is the year we're good enough on both sides of the ball to get at least one this year. Then we hit the bye week at Buffalo. I have a loss there. Versus Minnesota, that's one of those that can go either way. I can understand if you give us a loss there. Versus Cleveland, I have a toss up there depending on how that team. Yeah. I agree with that. I'm fine with that. At Houston, winnable game. I think we'll win that one. At Chargers, I have us losing this one. At Detroit, tough game. That's another one that could go 50-50. It depends on which rush we get. Detroit, I'm very high on Detroit going into this season. So I can give us a loss there. Versus New England, that's a W. Versus the Chargers, I have a W there. At Las Vegas, just because history, we're 0-6. I think that we'll come out week 1 and win. But at Las Vegas, I don't know because they just had our number for so many years. So, yeah, it's around that 9-10 wins for me.
I've been overly truthful about the Broncos this entire segment. just spitting facts about them. Here's 2 more facts for you.
Here we go.
Went 4-9 in 1-score games. Optimistic side of it. If you guys would have scored a couple more points, that could have shifted.
No, I know our defense was all world.
Hackett to Sean Payne, we know that's a major upgrade. You finished last in games lost to injury, a plethora of injuries.
Devastating.
But based on the statistics, it might be likely to happen again.
What the fuck?
Just because the last
what are we doing?
This is last 3 years.
What do we got?
Last 3 years, the Broncos have been 26th, 28th, and 32nd in games lost to injuries. So it's not that y'all are getting unlucky, more so that you guys just have injury-prone players on your roster. So it's not something that can't happen again.
Could happen to any team, though.
Hey,
you never know. You never know.
To speak some optimism about the defensive line, bringing in Zach Allen, that was definitely a cute addition. Frank Clark, although he's not been great these last couple of seasons, just getting personnel in there to add to the defensive line, not bad. DJ Jones was excellent last season. That's also a punt. We did lose Draymond Jones to, ironically, Seattle.
So great.
That traitor. That hurt.
Draymond Jones.
But,
he's with Shelby Harris.
But we need someone else on the defensive line. Either we need Randy Gregory to be healthy, which is a long shot
Bradley
at this
Chubb
point.
traded him.
Chubb I can live with because it ended up turning into Sean Payton. I'll live with that. But yeah, Baron Browning needs to come back because that's our best defensive lineman, in my opinion.
I'm looking at Randy Gregory.
Dude, I don't know.
Just last year, he played
plays.
6 games. With the Cowboys, even his best season, he played 12. So he missed 5 in that year, or I think 4, one of those. When he's only had one game. He's only had 2 seasons where he's played 12 or more games. He's only had 1 season.
This game a cute bag last year too.
When he plays, he's good.
Yeah.
We just need him to play.
Yeah, that's true. The Raiders, arguably the worst team that in this division. It is going to be the worst team in this division. No, it's between the Raiders and the Arizona Cardinals for the number 1 overall pick.
Bucks?
It's between them.
Bucks.
The Bucks have a shot.
Hey, Kyle
at
Trask, great day of
but
practice.
the Bucks have a defense that can keep them in games.
And they're in the NFC too.
Where the Raiders and the
NFC
Cardinals will let up a lot of points. That's the only rebuttal I'll give to that. Josh McDaniels is going to be fired after this season. I mean, last year you go 6-11 after the Raiders went 10-7. They added Chandler Jones. They added Devontae Adams, yet they got worse. And I think that's due to McDaniels' stubborn offensive system. Derek Carr had his worst year in a while with McDaniels. 2.8% interception rate, highest of his career. He usually takes care of the ball. He completed 68.4% of his passes in 2021. That went down to 60.8% in 2022. For me, Derek Carr is a quarterback I admire. The Raiders have done him dirty, never surrounded him with a good defense, not even an average defense. It's hard for me to believe that Derek Carr just fell off like drastically. I think that a lot of it was due to Josh McDaniels and what he was doing. And this is why. Derek Carr excelled in heavier personnel. You would think with the Raiders having Devontae and Renfro and really not a third receiver they can rely on, they would go into more 2 tight end personnel groupings with Waller and Foster Moreau, who's pretty solid. 11 personnel, Derek Carr, 42% success rate, 59.7% completion percentage, 7 yards per attempt. In 12 personnel, 55% success rate, 71.4% completion percentage, and 7.4 yards per attempt. Yet, despite looking at these numbers, and Derek Carr is much better in 12 personnel, McDaniels used 12 personnel on 5.6% of his offensive snaps. The best thing Carr did last season was something McDaniels basically took out of his offense completely, and I don't think that's going to change because you just got Jacoby Myers. So now you have Devontae, Myers, and Renfro. That tells me he wants to play more 11 personnel. And the problem with that is that Jimmy Garoppolo is coming from San Fran, where they play the third lowest rate of 11 personnel in the entire league. Their groupings are 21, 22, and 12 personnel, these heavier jumbo sets. So with me, you're going from Darren Waller and Foster Moreau to Michael Mayer and Austin Hooper. You're not going to have more tight ends on the field. Foster Moreau. And that's not something Jimmy Garoppolo was good at. That wasn't something that Derek Carr was good at. Derek Carr excelled in heavier groupings, and Josh McDaniels totally took it out of his offense. This is what's concerning to me, though. The face value stats will show that the Raiders are somewhat formidable on offense. They were 8th in points per drive.
Their rush offense was fantastic.
And 4th in scoring rate per drive. But that was heavily inflated due to Daniel Carlson. Daniel Carlson is arguably the best kicker in football. Outside of Justin Tucker, Carlson is probably number 2. Daniel Carlson, you get to the 45-yard line and he can hit a field goal. That's how good he is. And this stat proves that the Raiders' offensive success was not reliant on McDaniels because they were 23rd in yards per drive, which means they were one of the worst teams in the NFL at getting down the field. But they got there just enough for Carlson to inflate those numbers. And that's why he was first in fantasy the last 2 years, because he can kick it from anywhere.
Doesn't miss.
Josh McDaniels made Derek Carr throw down the field more than he ever has, and Carr was still great in those circumstances. Carr struggled in the intermediate area. That's somewhere where Jimmy Garoppolo excels, and he's great at attacking the middle of the field, but he's a deep passer, so you're trading off explosive plays for more efficient short yardage gains. A quarterback that's accustomed, Jimmy Garoppolo, to playing one way the majority of his career, I feel like there's going to be a lot of learning going into McDaniel's system. There's going to be a learning curve. McDaniels has already shown the ability not to adapt. When he's left the Patriots with Tom Brady, and when they didn't have Matt Patricia, they would have top 3 offenses. He went to the Broncos. He got fired midseason. He was horrible. He went to the Rams and coached up their offense. They were 32nd in the NFL in offense. This guy is going to get fired this year. It might not be in the middle of the season. It might be at the end of the season, but I fully believe that this team is going to start getting blown up. They have so much money allocated to the offense. They're one of the last teams in defensive spending, and that's why their defense is one of the worst teams. And this is also a coach that cannot coach with a lead. Last year, Raiders lost 5 games after blowing 7+ point leads at halftime, the most in NFL history. Raiders led by double digits at halftime in 5 games last year and lost 4 of them. The rest of the NFL was 84-9. McDaniels cannot coach with a lead. He has an inability to adapt, and you're going from Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo, a downgrading quarterback. Your defense still stinks. This team is going to be a bottom 3 team in the NFL, and I don't see a higher ceiling for them. They'll get a top 3 pick.
This team is pretty bad. It's pretty terrible. And I was surprised that – I shouldn't say surprised, because I believed that this Raiders team going into the offseason should have blown it up. But instead they went and signed Jimmy Garoppolo. Instead they went and signed Jacoby Myers. None of them to these huge extensions or huge deals that it's going to, financially cripple the team or anything like that. But I think it's going to do just enough to get them from being a top 3 pick. Now with these guys, probably pick like 7, right? And we talk about it all the time, whether it's the NFL or the NBA. The last place you want to be is kind of middle of the pack, where you're not getting a top pick, but you're also not good enough to win a Super Bowl. And I think Josh McDaniels is kind of doing this to himself, right? He obviously doesn't want to fail again as a head coach. He came in last year. There were some pretty high expectations. You got Chandler Jones. You got Devontae Adams. A lot of teams thought, or a lot of people thought this could kind of be, a dark horse, maybe wild card team. They sneak in. Tay, obviously one of the best receivers in the league. Chandler Jones coming off a great year. But it didn't turn out that way, right? You go 6-11. Things just don't go your way. The division's tough. The AFC's tough. And looking back on it, they probably never had the roster to really be a force in the AFC. But I think the fact that Josh McDaniels didn't want to go into a rebuild is really what's going to cripple this team in the long term, because no matter what, if you're a head coach and you're a human being, you don't want to fail. And Josh McDaniels did enough this offseason for them to be not a laughingstock, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to win like 1 or 2 games, right? I think they'll find a way to win 5 maybe. And once again, just be good enough to not get a top quarterback in this class. If you go back and look at last season, the weapons with Tay, with Renfro, with Josh Jacobs, you're saying, all right, this is good enough. The offensive line was surprisingly good, 10th in pass block win rate, 11th in run block win rate.
It's a tongue twister.
It is.
Don't feel bad.
But then you look at the rest of the division this year. You look at the offense. Okay, you have the worst quarterback in the division pretty easily. You have the worst head coach in the division pretty easily. And you have the worst defense in the division pretty easily, in my opinion. So no matter what happens with this Raiders team, That's three things that are going to be incredibly difficult to overcome. Jimmy Garoppolo, with the Niners, he was an average quarterback. Without Kyle Shanahan, he's going to be a below average quarterback. Devontae Adams, we talked about before the show started. They start off 2-5, 2-6. Trade deadline comes, he could get moved out. There's rumors that Hunter Renfro's roster spot might be in jeopardy. They already traded Darren Waller. This feels like a team that should have blew it up last offseason, and they're just saying, we're going to give one good go at it. And now our go at it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Myers.
Step back three.
Exactly. It's not going to get it done. This Raiders team, I have them with 4 or 5 wins. You also have the Josh Jacobs kind of holdout situation looming over their head, who he was the best running back last year in terms of rushing yards. He'll eventually play because you're not going to sit out and lose all of your money. But I really don't know if they should extend him if they're going to go into a rebuild. Doesn't make much sense to pay a running back if you're going to be rebuilding. You drafted Tyree Wilson, number 7 overall. I mean, there's some hope there for him. But outside of that, there's not much. Of course, you have Max Crosby, but there's not much young talent on this team to look forward to in the future. I think this is a team we'll look at the trade deadline, if not next offseason, selling a lot of their top guys, getting draft picks, and with the new coach and quarterback.
In New England is coming from that philosophy, bless you.
Thank you.
From Bill Belichick, where you don't pay running backs. So I doubt that they get anything done with Josh Jacobs because they come from that philosophy of not paying guys. And the Patriots have missed out on a ton of them over the years.
I was going to say, that's the one thing that if you were going to give McDaniels any credit, is that he carried over his run philosophy over to the Raiders, and Josh Jacobs was able to put forth his most impressive season, leading the league in rushing yards, being the highest graded running back on PFF. Josh Jacobs was flat out fantastic. It's understandable why he is holding out to get his contract because he deserves it. He was fantastic. I do believe that he will play. I do believe that he'll play under the tag, maybe something similar to Saquon, sign that 1-year deal and on a prove-it deal, and then maybe we can talk about a long-term contract. But you mentioned it. The run blocking, the pass blocking, the offensive line solid. But other than that, on the defensive side of the ball, they can't get to the quarterback. They can't stop the run on defense either. Secondary-wise, not that great of a unit. Just as a defense as a whole, bottom 5 defensive unit in terms of yards allowed against the opposition. The offense, I believe, is not going to be the problem. Like I mentioned earlier, yeah, I could be shorting Jimmy G on Mojo for the fact that I think that he'll be replaced and that'll ultimately impact his price. But he's a stable, reliable quarterback so long as he's, let me not say reliable because he has had injury history in the past. He is a stable quarterback if he is healthy and able to be on the field. You had Devontae Adams. You just added Jacoby Myers. We already talked about how solid this offensive line is. He's going to be able to do a good enough job to move the ball downfield, put points onto the board. Josh Jacobs, if he's on the field, will only alleviate pressure off of him as well. I don't think offense will be the issue. Defensively, it'll be a lot to ask of Wilson to come in and be this immediate impact player, change the way that we look at this defense because Crosby, Wilson, Chandler Jones, and on paper, that is an exciting trio to think about. But in the grand scheme of things, the rest of this defense, the linebackers aren't great. Secondary is not that great. Yeah, you added Shelley, but we'll see. That was a small sample size in terms of how great that he did play. And that's also talking about a Minnesota team that really was not that great regardless. Defensively, one of the worst that we saw in the league. You added Epps in the secondary also. You did things to try to improve this defense. But all in all, it's just off of projection alone. I just can't see a world where this team is anywhere near competitive. The expectations that we have from last year are nowhere near the ones that we're going to have it this year. Where you look at the difference between last year and this year, right? The Broncos and the Raiders had expectations last year. They both were supposed to get better. They added Devontae Adams. We added Russell Wilson. We both ended up fizzling out, not being anywhere near our expectations. They win 6. We win 5 games. This year, now we tried to get better, but we did the right things in order to get better. We added to the offensive line. That was a huge issue for us. We brought in an offensive mind, one of the best offensive mind that was available. The best offensive mind that was available. It's really just the fact. Ben Johnson is our
Lions. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. I apologize. And yeah, absolutely. The fact that Sean Payton now gets added to the group. We're looking at the Broncos and still having some kind of expectation. When we look at the Raiders, what's your expectation really? There's nothing else other than the fact that you're expecting this team to be in contention to upgrade the season after with a quarterback in this draft.
Yeah, the offense, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be part of the problem, or it won't be the main problem. It's
Correct.
just you're going to be banking on your offense led by Jimmy G in a division like we mentioned with Mahomes, Herbert, Russell Wilson, and the AFC with all these other great quarterbacks and offenses, that the offense with Tay, Jacobs, right, like it's a solid offense, but when you have to, the way you're going to have to win is by this offense led by Jimmy G, you're fucked.
You're cooked.
It's not going to happen.
Derek Carr couldn't do it. Derek Carr is significantly better than Jimmy G. It's not going to happen.
I think the difference between the Broncos and the Raiders is that you guys were far ahead in competing. You guys had a much better supporting cast and support system.
I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree.
That you just had to plug and play a quarterback, and if Russell Wilson was elite still, then there was optimism.
Well, also you could say that in the fact that the Raiders made the playoffs. They were a playoff team.
The Raiders made the playoffs.
They weren't supposed to regress like that.
I thought it was a bit of a fluky playoff appearance.
Well, they did give a great game to Cincinnati, who went to the AFC Super Bowl.
You can give a great game, but the defense was still one of the worst defenses in the league the year they made the playoffs.
They played 2 playoff games, and realistically, they played 2. Week 18 against the Chargers, and then, of course, that game against Cincinnati.
The Chargers game was nuts.
One of the better games that we saw in that season,
and,
of course.
I mean, Derek Carr came up red zone just short.
Facts.
One of the worst.
I think the Broncos roster, though, to me was better.
It is.
The Raiders.
Oh, no, now we can look at it. Sure.
The moves they made, Devontae Adams, I mean, offensive upgrade.
He was supposed to move the needle.
He was supposed to make the offense better, but defensively, we're still going to be a bad unit.
Agreed.
Even last year, I think when people looked at the Broncos and the Raiders, even though y'all made the Russ move and the Raiders made the Chandler Jones and Devontae move, people did not look at the Raiders like a team that can actually realistically compete for the AFC crown.
We all had them in 4th, I want to say, going into the year.
So that's what I say is they rushed the process in trying to build a contender because Josh McDaniels didn't want to lose his job and go through those losing seasons. But ultimately, they're going to have to face that fate anyway.
You know what they also don't talk about, man? How the ref called the play dead. Excuse me. And T. Higgins was just wide open right there for a touchdown. You remember that?
I can't say I do.
Bro, they called the play dead. They whistled it down, but Joe Burrow scrambles outside the pocket.
Yes. Coming back.
They
won anyway.
And by how many?
Oh, you're saying? Oh, that's right.
Mickey Mouse W, man.
Yeah. I mean, the Broncos.
Joe Burrow getting away with
your defense was always so much more ahead of them that they tried to kind of skip steps into
the Raiders' offense. To me, is still a question mark. 23rd in yards per drive means that you're not moving down the field efficiently.
And that's also the difference between the two teams. We were elite on the defensive side of the ball. And what the Raiders' strength was last year was offense. They weren't an elite offense by any means.
They have Michael Mayer now.
You're right. It is baby Gronk. That is baby Gronk.
Sam Laporta clears.
It feels like I think he has more upside. He was great in practice today.
Oh, I know.
He was great in
also clears
OTAs
Dalton
too.
Kincaid.
Okay.
He was great. I forgot what I was going to say, honestly. So here we go.
Oh my God. Come on, Dehls.
Is this your first time on a podcast?
First time.
I struggled to give the Raiders 4 wins. I had them at 3, and I was like, you know what? I think they win 4.
Yeah.
I really struggled to give them 4.
Who's the beginning of their coach next year?
Who knows if they fire McDaniels? I think they should.
If they go 4-13, 3-14, it's over. I'm sorry.
This is the beginning of their schedule. The Broncos on the road, the Bills on the road,
L.
The Steelers at home,
L.
The Chargers on the road,
L.
The Packers at home,
maybe
probably L.
Well, the Patriots at home,
maybe.
The Bears on the road,
maybe.
I think I still lean Chicago.
I lean L.
The Lions on the road,
it's a loss.
The Giants at home,
it's a loss.
Maybe.
The Jets
at
home.
Fuck?
I'm joking.
The Jets at home.
That's an L.
It's an L.
The Dolphins on the road,
maybe.
Huge L.
The Chiefs at home,
L.
The Vikings at home,
L.
It didn't feel good, right?
The Chargers at home,
L.
The Chiefs on the road.
Yeah, it's hard, bro, because on both sides.
Are they about to go 0-17?
No, I think
just fucking around.
Yeah, you find a way.
I look at the schedule and I think the teams they can win against are the Packers,
the Bears,
and even when they beat the Patriots, it was because Jacoby Myers threw
Packers,
the ball back.
Patriots, Bears,
Bears,
and honestly, you have to. I'm not even saying
Giants,
Broncos.
Colts,
maybe you get one.
We're 0-6 against them in the last 6 games.
So that's why for me, I think 4 wins. That's my ceiling for this.
I have them with 4 wins.
Yeah, that's my ceiling for this team.
Who knows? Maybe this 4 wins get you a top 3 pick.
I mean, last year the Broncos won 5 games, and we were the 5th pick. Okay. I believe that the Colts had 4 wins. They had the 4th pick. The Bears and Texans.
The Bears and Texans both had 3. So 4 wins is getting you a top 4 pick.
The competition is going to be the Bucks and the
Cardinals.
Cardinals.
Yeah.
That's the 3 teams.
What
The
if
Raiders,
Kyler
Bucks,
comes back?
Cardinals.
It's true.
I think
Kyler will come back too.
Kyler with half a season can match the Raiders win.
And
total.
honestly, it'll probably be sooner than that. I saw a tweet. I forgot who it was from, but basically like Joe Burrow, Deshaun, these guys who all had ACL injuries, it was basically a 10-month timeline. Or they came back within 10 months. 10 months would be like week 4, week 5 for Kyler. So I know a lot of people are expecting him to miss a majority of the season. And maybe the Cardinals hold him out extra because they're going to suck, right? Maybe he comes back week 8 instead of week 4. But if Kyler is ready to go, like probability-wise, he'll probably be back a lot sooner than we're anticipating.
If you get Kyler Murray week 8 and you get 9 games out of him, I think they can get to 4.
Yeah, you'll win 3 or 4. And you just got to find, is there backup? This is Colt McCoy. Who are they rocking with over there?
I think it is Colt.
I don't know. I don't think it's Colt, man. I think it's somebody else. It's one of those like deep backups that, you got to get deep in your bag to
It
name.
is Colt.
Yeah.
It is Colt McCoy?
Colt.
Well, he's solid.
Oh, and I forgot Clayton Tune.
Oh, yeah.
They were having, what's it called?
David Blau,
Well,
man.
Well, Colt McCoy is
okay.
a solid
Competition.
backup. So
He is. You could win a game, maybe 2.
I just struggle with the Jonathan Gannon hire. So
Yeah.
I don't know. If the defense isn't good, then that's a question mark.
You have probably the shortest.
Tell you what, though, if
receiver core of all
Arizona gets the number 1 overall pick, they're going to get a
Trade
bag,
Kyler.
and I think the timeline definitely speeds up for
So
that.
you'd rather build around Kyler than Caleb.
You trust
It's-
Kyler.
The dead money for Kyler's contract it's ugly.
They just signed it. You have no choice but to trade that first. You will get a bag because you're trading that selection that will be, in a lot of people's eyes, a generational selection. They're going to get multiple draft picks.
If you trade Kyler in 2024, you'll be $46 million dead cap hit.
yeah, get the hell out of here.
That's why I'm excited to see Derek Carr with the Saints, though, because I think he was held back mightily by Josh McDaniels and the Raiders in this season. And if the Saints get top 15 level quarterback play from Carr with their roster, it's been declining over the years. I think they should have won the NFC South comfortably, but the Atlanta Falcons are a team that
Say, man.
I got
like
my
the Falcons.
eyebrow raised.
I like the Falcons.
They
I
look
love the
good.
Falcons. I love the
I'm
Falcons.
The AFC South or the NFC South is going to be fun because a lot of these divisions
It was
we've
fun
done
last year.
Yeah, a lot of these divisions we've done, it's pretty chalk, right? Like we knew the Bengals and Ravens going to be the top, the Bills, the Chiefs. Like we, for the most part, knew what it was going to be. But once you get to those divisions, like both the AFC, we did the AFC South, I guess, but the
Panthers
NFC
solid
South,
too.
Panthers have a chance. They all have a chance realistically to win that division, except
Outside
for the
of the
Bucs.
Bucs.
Yeah, they're going to be
Unless you
terrible.
think Baker will be good.
Unless
Sure.
Kyle Trask continues his work.
Baker's job.
It's Baker's job.
Yeah.
It's
Don't you
Baker's job to
forget it.
lose.
What do you think, bro? The Broncos should trade for Chris Godwin?
That'd be tough.
I just thought of it.
I mean, don't you guys already have the highest paid wide receiver room?
One of.
They do?
Yeah.
Wow.
They paid Sutton and Tim Patrick
Timmy.
already.
That is nuts.
I'm happy for Tim. That got his money, man. Great
He
dude.
deserves. He is a good dude.
Great
Yeah.
dude.
Um,
Happy he's back.
It is a bit. I'm not even a Raiders fan. I'm like a kind of Raiders fan because my dad is. But he's more of a Jets fan now than anything. But it is pretty infuriating when you have like us from afar. It's so easy what the pass should be, where it's like just trade Max Crosby, trade Tay, trade Josh Jacobs, get draft picks and suck for a year. But on the other end of it, like we mentioned, it's hard for a guy like Josh McDaniels to fail for a second time. Because if you fail first time as a head coach, you might get a chance a second time. You fail a second time, you're not getting a third chance at a head coach.
For sure.
Yeah.
And in Vegas, you need to give that city something to root for.
Yeah,
at
and
least.
you can be there for this is year 2, 3 in Vegas,
Year
right?
2, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so too. Because the year that they went to the playoffs, that was Vegas. This is going to be year 3.
Oh, they made the playoffs when they were in Vegas?
I believe so.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because that Chargers game was in Vegas.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
My
game was
timeline is
so
all messed
damn
up.
good.
Yeah.
And really funny. We were talking about the Chargers and Brandon Staley. He blew that chance terribly. They were about to accept the tie. Brandon Staley goes and calls timeout, trying to be cute. And then, of course, who is this? Spag. Who was the replacement for Gruden that year? I'm blanking on the special teams head coach.
Oh,
Mike Bisaccia.
Bisaccia, facts.
I don't know if it's Mike, but I know it's Bisaccia.
Yeah, no, regardless. He was just like, fuck this. We're going to kick this field goal right now and win this game.
Rick Bisaccia. That's
Rick.
what it is.
and listen, I know there's someone who just said trade Crosby. Are you high? Look what the Jets did, trading Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams, and of course, Crosby being a pass rusher is more, more important. But you trade Crosby, you'll probably get 2 firsts, and those are 2 pieces you can build a future with. Like Crosby, we understand one of the best defensive ends, one of the best pass rushers in the league. But to be honest, like this Raiders team, their window isn't to win within these next couple of years. Their window is we have to rebuild. This is a 3 to 4 year window. And at the end of that window, we want to be competitive. At that point, it's probably more valuable to have those draft picks and just more or less ensure you're going to be bad than have the player.
I mean, it just sucks that for this division, outside of the Chargers, the Chargers have some optimism. It's just Mahomes' division. Man.
It is.
He owns it. As long as he's there, 8 straight years, probably going to be 9 this year. I mean, he owns it. It's simple as that, man.
I'm glad you felt the need to say that.
So
man.
we should do the predictions. Anyone not have the Chiefs win the division?
Hold up. Black Sunday says, no matter how bad the Raiders will be, we'll still own the Denver Donkeys.
Denver Donkeys.
I don't appreciate that.
That feels, you know what I
Some
mean?
undertones.
Yeah, for sure.
Donkey.
Donkey's crazy.
Charles Gibson says Herbert is the most overrated top 5 quarterback.
How can you be overrated as a top 5 quarterback?
I don't know.
I guess if you're saying like pick one out of, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Herbert,
Yeah,
and
throw that away.
Whatever.
Guess he's just, people think he's the best of the best. And, this guy thinks he's the worst of the best. So that's why he's overrated, right?
Herbert's fucking amazing.
He's far from the word.
Yeah.
Starting to get underrated.
No, he is underrated. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, he had Schefter tweeted when he got his deal, he was like first in passing yards, touchdowns, quarterback or QBR within his first 3 years or whatever it was.
Last year, most points scored.
Yeah.
Defensively, most points given up.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
AFC West predictions. Now, I'm interested to see if you got the Broncos winning this division or not.
Why would I do that?
I don't know. Maybe you're buying into
Hey,
Kool-Aid.
he had the Jets winning over the Bills and Miami.
And Miami. Yeah, he's smoking K2 maybe.
No, that's not crazy to say that.
Like I said.
They're not Mahomes, to be fair.
No, they're not Mahomes.
So yes, winning this division will be the Kansas City Chiefs. I have them around 13, 14 wins. In second place, it's going to be between the Chargers and the Broncos. I have them honestly neck and neck, both at 10 wins. So either which way you shake it. But in last place is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. It's going to be around that 4 or 5 win range.
I have the Chiefs 14-3, first place, number 1 seed. Chargers second place, 11-6. Broncos third place, 9-8, respectable 9-8. Fourth place Raiders, 4-13.
The Chiefs for me, first seed, 13-4. Chargers, I got it 10-7, second place. Broncos 9-8, third place. 8-9 win team for me. I think the Broncos are. And last place, the Las Vegas Raiders at 4-13. I think they'll be vying for that number 1 overall pick. It's going to be a 3-team race. It's Buccaneers, Cardinals, the Raiders. One of those 3 teams will secure the first overall pick.
Yeah, the Raiders were a better team last year, won 6 games. So it's not crazy to think that they'll be in that competition for first overall pick.
They need a reset.
I mean, it depends if you think the drop off from Carr to Jimmy is 2 games.
It's not massive, but
they should have let Jared Stidham have the team, man.
He was good when he played.
Hey, now he's our backup.
Maybe he can have the team for the Broncos.
Oh shit,
he's not gonna.
340 yards against the 49ers.
Yeah, that was legendary.
He got signed to him.
That's why I say that.
He got signed to him, man.
Excuse me.
Jared Stidham.
You have manners.
I don't give a fuck.
There was a point in time
right now
where he was supposed.
One more word and I'd blow this burp in your face.
There was a point in time where he was supposed to replace Brady.
Away from me. Yeah, what a time. There's a lot of quarterbacks that were supposed to replace Brady.
R.I.P. Ryan Mallett.
Ryan Mallett. Yeah.
Stidham, man. That's a great backup quarterback, though. Not better than Zach, though. Zach is the best backup quarterback in the league.
Here we go.
Yeah. He's been killing it in practice.
He's not better than Trey Lance. Not better than Trey Lance.
Come on, man.
Come on. Be serious.
He was with the 49ers.
Sam Darnold also clears.
Now he's just being ridiculous. Zach Wilson's going to do his thing. I'm telling you, man. Year 4 breakout.
I'm excited to get some Zach Wilson hype out of Hard Knocks.
It's not going to be hype.
No,
it's going to be literally a tragedy. You're going to be watching a tragedy. Yeah, I was drafted number 2 overall. I'm Zach Wilson. Oh, yeah, I also had one of the most disgusting second years in the history of the NFL. I'm one of the biggest busts in NFL history.
He doesn't talk like that.
I'm handsome.
Yeah, get out of here. You know what Zach's going to say? Zach's going to say, first 2 years didn't go exactly as planned. But you know what? I'm going to work my butt off to get better. Going to learn from Aaron, and he's been such a great mentor. And everybody's going to love him and be like, I'm hoping he succeeds.
Do you want me to get more disrespectful? I could talk in the geeky voice. Yeah, I'm Zach Wilson. Yeah, I'm just garbage. Number 2 overall pick.
I feel like that's more realistic than the first voice.
I love 40, 50-year-old women.
Yeah, at least
more than I love football.
Yeah, at least we don't have $245 million invested into a quarterback who played at the level of Zach Wilson last year.
In his worst year, he still cleared in touchdowns.
in his worst year, 18 touchdowns.
16.
16.
God.
Wow. So great. 17
how
games
do-
in a season, buddy.
and,
What's Zach have? How many
I think
touchdowns?
he
Yeah.
probably had like 9. No,
Yeah.
let me check.
He didn't have double digits. He did not have double digits.
Imagine?
He had
Imagine?
6. He had
Six.
6.
Imagine?
Year before?
9.
I'm going to fucking vomit.
I'm trying to look at
It
Russell.
was all for you, man.
I would rather eat a pile
all
of
for you,
shit than have
Rodgers.
him selected to my team.
Jeez.
You better watch your mouth, man.
$35 million pay cut. Build the statue.
Yeah.
Are you guys reading super chats, Drew? Absolutely.
We already read them.
Yeah, no, there's
Only a
another
handful.
one.
Like the video, man. Like
Facts.
it up. Like it up.
Get us to 100 right now. Pick a side meme, of course, Santos Lopez. This guy's been an enemy of mine recently. Santos,
Brian.
we're gonna have to talk about this shit,
I
man.
get
'cause
back in the Discord.
Can't
I've
even
been
stand
slacking.
you, man. He goes, just ordered your jersey and shirt, Drew. Devil face emoji, smiling. Should arrive Saturday. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it so much. I'm gonna be such a bitch when that shirt comes. I promise you. I'm not gonna be a good sport about it.
You're not gonna wear it.
I will see about it.
Listen, man. Just give Mahomes some respect. They're reluctant.
I-
That's the we're
It's the most
witnessing
respect
greatness.
I've given him in God knows how long.
And it's still disrespectful.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Said
'Cause
so long as he's there, they're
it's
gonna win the
inconsiderate.
division. I don't give a fuck about him. Whatever. He's fucking great.
I feel like
Woohoo.
somebody's in being invisible and just holding Drew at gunpoint to say all these things. It's not.
That's happened. That's exactly what you guys are doing. Because I have to come up here. I have to sound professional. I'm bitter. I'm angry.
Dude.
You know, there was this interview that Aaron Rodgers had with Big Cat, right? And he says, "Yo, Big Cat, I have an honest question for you, man. Is some of your biggest moments of the season waiting for me to lose in the playoffs?" And Big Cat just goes openly and just like, "I live for when you
That's
go into the
hilarious.
playoffs because I know inevitably you are going to lose." That's how I felt against the Bengals when they lost in the AFC Championship game against the Patriots. I was fucking through the moon. They lost in the Super Bowl. I was giddy as shit. God bless Tom Brady. God bless Rob Gronkowski. God bless Shaq. God bless Devin White, whatever. I believe that's the linebacker's name. I don't want to disrespect him because it's Devin White and then Devin Lloyd. Antonio Brown. Hope you're okay, man. I mean, terrible things are happening to you recently. Your own doing, of course, so it is what it is. But damn, I live for those.
When Big Cat, it always kills me when Big Cat,
Don't
he's
get those
with an
moments
athlete and
often.
he's like, "Do you want to read some mean tweets about you?" And it's the tweets he has about them. Oh, shit's kill me, bro. They'd be like, "Who said that?" He's like, "Oh, that was me."
Yeah, about Aaron Donald. Was that one of them
He did it
too?
with Donald. He did it with
Facts.
Rodgers. Did it with, I think, Field. No, he's a Bears fan. I forgot. But yeah,
That's
was
funny, bro. I love the guy from Barstool who interviews coaches and players and celebrities. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. He has long hair though.
Oh, Caleb Presley.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Caleb
he's
Presley.
mad
He
funny.
just did it with
hilarious.
Joe Burrow.
He's mad.
he did?
funny.
He did just do
Yeah.
one
Oh,
with Joe
okay. I
Burrow.
gotta watch that. I saw the one with Sean McVay.
The Drewski one's so fucking.
Did you see
funny,
the
bro.
one that he did with Najee Harris that he essentially had Najee Harris admit that he was getting paid by just
in
underneath?
college?
Yeah.
Nah. Oh, maybe I did.
Yeah, he's just so you do get paid. And Najee Harris realizes that he fucking put himself in a terrible situation. He just stops talking.
Yeah, nah, he's funny as hell.
Bro, with Sean McVay, he was like, "Why do you think there's not enough? Why do you think there's not white cornerbacks?" in the NFL?" And Sean McVay's like, I just think everybody has a set. He gave a political ass head
Yeah.
coaching answer.
No, McVay did as good of a job of being PC as he could while also understanding that he's on a comedic show, that he's hiding so much of his laughter. I wanted him to obviously be a little loose, but he couldn't. Of course, when you're the head coach in an NFL, you got to be very pristine.
But that's gonna do it for the AFC West preview show. The Chiefs gotta win a division, man.
God willing, the
Patrick
Broncos do.
Mahomes, greatest of all time. Merch is dropping on
Yes, sir.
Friday. $25 for the shirts and shorts. The hat to be determined, but the merch will be dropping on Friday. You can follow us on Twitter at PickAsidePod, on Instagram and TikTok at PickAsidePodcast. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.